He's got, yeah, he's only got a couple minutes, so.
Is this Gary?
Gary.
Is Gary here?
Carrie.
Or-
Carrie Hudall.
Terry?
Carrie.
Terry? Is there
Right
a
here.
Terry? Carrie?
You wanna,
It's Carrie. Carrie Hudala.
From the last time I was up here, this planning commissioner staff report. What the whole deal, like I said, what's going on in planning zoning. We've got enough problems already with nitrate and water table level. And then in their report, if they have it, it'd be on page 4, ordinance reference, section 1.02 purpose. Number A is protecting the public health, safety, comfort, convenience, and general welfare. So what I've gathered out of this for 2 months, that's all been all aside, whatever they want to do. So if this deal is going to be planned and go through, in my book, it's 100% socialism. And I don't know if they understand what Memorial Weekend is all about. The people that gave their lives not to have this stuff, just jam it down somebody's throat. Reading through what they put down there, they put it together, I didn't. But they're not abiding by it by any means at all. But before I thought the word trust meant something, but now it's socialism is what it is. So that's about all I got to say on that whole project. To me, it should be thrown out the damn window and maybe we'll all breathe a little easier. We already got nitrate problem. Mine is already close to 40 parts per million. Well, they want to fix everything. Well, yeah, well goes dry, I'll put you a new one in. Well, you're going to fix this? We're overloaded already. You start increasing it, you think it's going to get better? Not by any means. If you're going to double or quadruple it, no. I don't know what they're thinking or how they can even justify that. And they're thinking that they're not appointed. Well, basically appointed, they're not voted in. They're definitely not taking care of the public, in my book. So, that's what I got to say on this deal, period.
Sir, can you say your name for the record? Could you say your name for the record?
Oh, Carrie Hudala,
Thank you.
24107, 220th Street, Long Prairie.
Thank you.
Thank
bet.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I know. She ain't living right.
good morning, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Todd County Board of Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, February 20th. The time is 9 o'clock. All commissioners are present except for Commissioner Byers, and we will stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to add under the Commissioners 12.2, lighting up of the cupola to blue in honor of the 2 fallen police officers in Burnsville and the EMT that also lost his life. So if we could add that, thank you.
Are there any other amendments to the agenda? If not, I'll ask for a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll motion to approve with the addition.
Motion by Noska, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
And carries. Denise, we'll go into the consent items.
And I have a lot of them today. Meeting minute approval for February 6, 2024. Birchwood Resort seasonal liquor license. Clarissa Ballroom 1-year dance license. Clarissa Ballroom 1-year 3.2 malt liquor license. Clarissa Ballroom 1-year setup license. Clarissa Ballroom 1-year wine license. Diamond Point 1-year liquor license. Double Eagle and Grill seasonal liquor license. Long Prairie Country Club 1-year liquor license. Rainbow Lodge 3.2 malt liquor license. Rainbow Lodge 1-year setup license. Rainbow Lodge seasonal wine license. The Rock Tavern LLC 1-year liquor license. Saconet Campground 1-year liquor license. Shady's Golden Eagle 1-year liquor license. Shady's Midway Incorporated 1-year liquor license. Shattuck's Hub Supper Club 1-year liquor license.
Okay, after hearing the consent items, is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Nazca. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
The next item I have then under the auditor treasurer category would be to approve the commissioner warrants. Background is sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the commissioner warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling in the amount of $112,687.24.
Okay, is there a motion for the commissioner warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Denny, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Denny?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Nazca?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item I have on the agenda then is the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling $135,668.24.
Okay, and do I have a motion for the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Nazca, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Nazca?
Yes.
Commissioner Denny?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
The last item I have then is the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling in the amount of $130,159.66.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion for the Health and Human Services SSIS warrants.
So moved.
Motion by Denny, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Nazca. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Denny?
Yes.
Commissioner Nazca?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes. Then we'll go into the joint board, soil and water, joint board meeting. You guys want to come up and take a chair?
Thank you.
Thank you, Deja.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Then I guess I will start it by calling the Soil and Water Joint Board meeting to order. Do we have to have a motion on that, Denise, or just? call it
Yes,
to
these
order?
will,
Okay, I'd have to ask for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Nazca, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
no, their
thank you.
board.
Okay, I'll call the Soil and Water Board to order. Is there a motion?
I'll second.
Dale made the motion and Tom seconded. All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
And, no, pardon? Then
Barb,
we
you're
need
gonna,
approval for the agenda for the Soil and Water Board. Is there a motion for that?
I make it.
Tom?
There's a change to it, though. We are removing approval number 4.
Okay. Is that part of your motion, Tom?
Yep.
And second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Okay, at that time, I'll ask for the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Nazca, second.
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Okay,
And I think we'll go into the soil and water presentation then.
Yep, can you guys hear me or do I need a mic?
We can, wait, they got more mics. Is this your presentation on the screen
Yes.
in front of you too? Okay.
Yeah, part of it. Okay. So first of all, thank you again for meeting with us. It is part of our annual agreement that we meet once a year. We've got 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to get through as much as we can. There is some changes into this first presentation page, just adding in a couple dollar amounts for you. To start off, the Soil and Water Board would like to highlight a couple of cool things that happened over last year. We had a really, for the third year in a row, we've had a really successful local work group tour. And that seems to be growing in popularity every year. This year, the bus was full. We visited rain gardens, forestry management acres, wellhead protection for gray eagle, field erosion, some unique vegetative treatment areas, stream bank restorations, feedlot fixes, and new construction. And we'd like to thank the family of Rick Baum for providing us a space to meet at his farm. He donated all of the burger meat from his cattle, and they also did a lot of cooking. So we wanted to acknowledge them. We had really high citizen participation in the Mississippi Brainerd One Watershed One Plan. And Todd County continues to be one of the top counties with citizens in particular, commissioners too, and SWCD supervisor involvement. So we really appreciate our citizens, but thank you, commissioners, too, for all the work that you do. Again, feedlot meeting, that's always popular. We had a really great contractor meeting in 2023. And we did presentations at Big Birch, Little Birch education events, state convention for the Bible camps. We were invited to present on lakes there, Lake Beauty Education Association, Big Birch Lake Association, and Pine Island Lake Association. So the demand for education is increasing on lakes as well. And then I also included in this packet, it seems super fat, but you probably all read that we nominated Samantha Middendorf. She's a K-1 teacher at Christ the King in Browerville. We nominated her as our County Teacher of the Year for conservation. She actually won the State Teacher of the Year. So she got selected out of all the applicants or nominees from across the state, and she won the state one. So the Mindorfs are farmers here in Todd County, dairy farmers, but she's also a teacher. And so we're really excited to share that with you. We also wanted to also let you know that Sarah Catterhagen was chosen as, or nominated as an Employee of the Year this year as well. So she was recognized. On the graph in front of you, we're just going to kind of talk about a quick summary on the project type things that we did. We do a lot of cross-training in our office these days, and that helps us achieve job approval authority certifications so that they can sign off. Our technicians now sign off on the majority of their work. And we enjoy joining in unique partnerships across all the 5 major watersheds in the county. Todd SWCD cost-shared landowners to install a total of 30 different certified best management practices in 2023. This is a double of what we did from last year. You can see the types of installments that we did. You can also see the circle graph down there talks about when you look at numbers of projects, where did the most numbers of our projects go? And they went into the Long Prairie watershed. But the highest dollar value actually went into the Crow Wing. And that's because of that Crow Wing Partridge River grant that we had, where we did feedlot fixes and pit closures through there. So on the packet that I handed out, Long Prairie watershed, we did $92,753 in projects. Sauk River watershed, $73,793. The Crow Wing was $116,063. Mississippi Brainerd, $34,349. And Red Eye was $12,900. Now, this is kind of the first year that we're kind of kicking off some of these watershed plans. If you look down in the lower right-hand corner, the total estimated value of just the engineered projects that we're looking to install next year is $1,615,500, just with the watershed. So you can see the jump from this year, which was double from last year, now going even higher. The total value of projects completed in 2023 was $462,226. You can see the breakdown of what we offered versus what the landowners paid in. And then for Ag BMP loans, which they come through our office, we have to review and approve, and a lot of these are projects we're working on. We had $860,900. $185,900 was for manure handling equipment, $600,000 for feedlot fixes, and $75,000 for conservation tillage and equipment. So a total of economic activity through Todd County is $1,323,126. Maybe small beans compared to your large overscale or large scale budgets, but it's we're pretty proud of being able to turn that in. And Dale, for one, is and has seen this presentation as well as I, that when for every dollar spent, it gets rotated through 7 times or 7 other hands or businesses or whatever within your county and multiplies that effect by 7 times. So pretty happy with that. Any questions? Oh, I did want to ignore, before we go on to the next section, I just wanted to acknowledge that all of that work accomplished on the part of the SWCD in the field is the work accomplished by our 4 field technicians, who also each operate county programs on top of this work, respond to customer assistance requests on top of this work, host events, all of this that they do is on top of these projects. I also wanted to thank the commissioners who refer citizens to our department for technical expertise, so we appreciate that. Any questions on this section?
Questions? Oh.
Okay. The next topic we're just going to quickly breeze through were some employee updates. So there are 5.75 full-time equivalents who work in the SWCD department. Now, Adam is the overhead, but the SWCD department itself is 5.75. There's 4 field technicians, 1 program coordinator that works 75% of the time on SWCD, and then myself, the manager. In 2019, and this I'm sharing, I'm unfortunate Bob's not here, but I'm sharing this because of we have some new commissioners on the board. In 2019, the position of SWCD manager was returned to the SWCD. It was left, I think, in 2012 was the last time you might have had one. So the manager position was returned as the former division director found that with such a busy office, it was overly demanding trying to operate 2 departments under 1 management. To provide our citizens due justice, the division director needed to focus primarily on planning and zoning with a manager underneath him to manage the soil and water activities. Later in 2019, Adam Ossifort took over as the division director, overseeing both the planning and zoning department and Todd SWCD. Both departments are now equally strong in their focus areas and work together well, creating a synergetic department that can operate much more proficiently. The last thing I wanted to bring to your attention is we have submitted application to Bowser for a fully funded soil health practitioner to be shared between the counties of Todd, Wadena, and East Otter Tail. This position, if awarded and agreed upon by the SWCD and the commissioners, would be housed in the NRCS office. With the high need for better field, soil, and nutrient management, particularly in the Long Prairie River corridor and upwards into Wadena, Otter Tail, the Central Sands area, this practitioner is in great demand by the public. We shall see if we're awarded the grant, and in between, both boards will need to meet with their liaison representatives to detail this position. So that's that. Any questions there?
Excuse me, Deja, when do you find out about the grant? I know we just signed a letter for support of it.
Yeah, it'll be, I think, in the end of March before we hear back.
Okay.
So we're still got a ways to, and time to meet on that as well. Okay. The next area that would be of interest to you is, let me just see here. Oh, I don't think I brought it up, but it's in your packet here. Randy had asked about, oh, I've got it in here, I just gotta look. Randy had asked about the breakdown. So in 1998, I think they had a breakdown of what was going on agriculturally in Todd County and what was going on like feedlot world agriculturally. And I thought for the SWCD board and you guys together, it might be kind of interesting to hear some statistics. Interestingly enough, COVID kind of got in the way. So some of this information is 2023. Some of this information I garnered was 2021, 2020, and then the last census that's been published is 2017. So if you kind of turn past the Samantha Middendorf paperwork there, there's a page that says Agricultural Economics for Todd County Highlights. According to the USDA, Todd County produced $943 million in gross domestic product in 2022. Of that, $179,461,000 came from annual sales of livestock production. As far as private employment, livestock farming is the #1 private employer in the county and #2 in industrial output, second only to animal processing for industrial output. That came from the University of Minnesota. The lead employment industry sector in Todd County continues to be manufacturing, which includes production occupations in agriculture, providing 2,288 jobs annually out of the 5,916 jobs provided in Todd County in 2022. I have seen some numbers that are a little higher than that as far as jobs provided. I don't know if that takes out what the county provides or not. In 2022, this was really interesting to me. There was $64,862,000 in milk sales alone in Todd County. Our dairy farms have dropped significantly, so to have 64 million still going on in Todd County was interesting. And then agribusinesses in Long Prairie alone. And the list is certainly not all-inclusive, but looking down, when I went online and looked up agribusinesses, we have CHS, Long Prairie Machinery, Upper Midwest Pumping and Harvesting, Fleet Supply, Dan's Prize, Thorson's Farm Market, Long Prairie Vet, Total Track and Performance, Long Prairie Packing, Long Prairie Livestock Auction, Henry Street Cattle Buying Station, Daybreak, Minnesota Fresh, JCP Potatoes, Central Byproducts, and over 20 trucking companies specifically for hauling livestock and farm commodities are registered in Long Prairie alone. There was pages of trucking companies, but there were 20 local guys. Looking at the next page, you look at the number of feedlots, and I'm not going to go down through all of those, but I broke it down by township for you, and also the size of the feedlot. So you can see we have many feedlots in Todd County, but they have gotten smaller. So we've gotten more feedlots, but they are smaller in size for the majority of it. And Eagle Valley right now has the highest number of registered feedlots. I think in the past it was Burnhamville, I thought, but now it's Eagle Valley, second to Reynolds, and then Iona, and then Little Turtle Creek has 18. So I'll let you just kind of explore that on your own free time. The next ones that we looked at here were feedlots within city limits. I thought that would be of interest to you too. So you can see there's not very many. There's a total of 9 that are found within city limits. And the 2 in Long Prairie are Henry Street. And they are considered a feedlot because they hold animals more than the day. So they'll come in, they'll hold animals for 3-4 days, and then they transport them out. Some days they come in and they're gone that same day, but they are considered a feedlot. And the packing plant is not, because anything that walks through that door is dead, basically, that day. So anything that walks through Henry Street, when they leave, doesn't matter which direction it goes, they're walking. They're still alive. So, and the other one was the livestock auction barn is the other feedlot. So, interesting. So the state database still has 1,480 feedlots in its system for Todd County. The information that I'm providing to you today was from our 2024 data dump off the state system. 58% of our registered feedlots consist of less than 50 animal units. 44% are at 50 animal units or higher. Farms are scaling down in size to remain profitable or to exist for local sales and homegrown foods, or they must get larger to stay in business. The feedlots, and I already told you that, the last statement. The rest of the information is for your, I'm not going to go through it, but we have the USDA just provided the number of cattle that's in Todd County. I think we're down to number 8 now as far as number of cattle. And you can look at that compared to some of the other counties. The next page here, I provided some agricultural and economic contribution study done by AgriGrowth, and I think that was done in conjunction with the university too. It says that there's 654 jobs created through crops, 4,652 jobs in livestock, 51 jobs in forestry, and then there's other different jobs out there too. But talks about the output and the value added. Agriculture in Todd County in 2020 generated an estimated $394.9 million in total value added of the cost inputs. So the next one that I provided was the 2017 census, and that breaks down land, different types of farms, farm by size for you. Any questions?
No,
Is that-
thank you, Daisha, for getting this information. I got into our comprehensive plan book a couple weeks ago and started reviewing it. I'm going, how can we make good decisions on 20-year-old data?
Right,
It's very hard,
yes,
and we don't know where the growth is. We know we're losing dairy farmers,
yes.
you know, with the price of milk and everything, and so, yeah, thank you for doing this, and I don't know if the 2 commissioners here, if you got a copy of the comprehensive plan book from Todd County?
I do, yeah.
You did? Okay, all right. We need to probably update that sometime soon, so we have updated data.
Yes, I would agree with you. And interesting in my findings here, obviously Todd County itself is a huge employer. And then the hospital, since we've got that new hospital, that has really crept up. It's right behind in manufacturing. It's likely to surpass the manufacturing soon.
Good, thank you.
Yep. All right, and the last little tidbit here. It does say in our agreement that we should go through the budget, and I know two of you have been a part of that process, but the other ones, I'm not going to walk through everything here. You can read it, but just so that Tim and, well, Lou pretty much knows, but Bob at some point, if he watches this, how our budgets work. So we'll kind of start with, we operate off of a zero balance budget. So basically, we're not here to make money. We just project what we're going to be having coming in as far as our grants go, and then we build a budget off of that. Now, sometimes this is just an estimate. We can get in the middle of a year, we'll get some unknown grant. So for example, we just got another 100,000 that we can apply down in the Sauk River watershed through the supplemental funding. We also just found out we got another 204, I believe, $1,000 to enter into on the Long Prairie supplemental. So things like that happen throughout the year, and we can't put those into our budget because we don't know they're happening. So at the end of the year, you can kind of see the different balances, like Sarah does an excellent job showing actual versus budget. But we do the best we can with it. So the first 2 pages that I supplied to you is our revenue. And at the very top, it says intergovernmental revenue county. What that whole section is, that just that very top part, is the money that the county receives plus any additional match that's required. Feedlot program requires a match to run county programs. The county has utilize the SWCD to operate those county programs, but you can see 562,136 is handed over to the SWCD to operate those programs. These programs make up about 3 to 3.5 FTEs. So there's the WACA buffer, which when you add all the work up is about 1 FTE. The feedlot is 1.5 FTE. Water planner, AIS, another FTE. These are seats in which the county must provide no matter what department they sit within. So they could take those seats and plop them in with auditor treasurers. Just as an example, they'd still have to, have those programs if they are working with the state. So that leaves 2.25 to 2.5 FTEs for soil and water work. Now, if you look down to state and charge for services section, those are all the grants that we get as an SWCD. We apply for grants, we work with and get these different grants to operate the SWCD. So when you add those together, it's about, let me think here, 696, 572. And currently, of those 2.25 FTEs, currently 0.5 of this is getting charged to West Central for the nutrient management position. So all of the FTEs are grant funded, meaning we're able to charge each employee's full billable rate plus 10% to cover extraneous costs for facility fees, the auditor treasurer support administration. And I don't know, this may be unique among departments that all of the employees are funded by grants. And so how this works is that all employees who work within the SWCD department track their daily activities down to the half an hour. So there's this funky page that you see here. Maybe scroll up to the one before it, if you don't mind. Or the one before that, sorry. Okay, this is not intended for you to be able to read, but this is what every time we put a half an hour in, we have to record it somewhere next to the grants on the left-hand side. So every line there is another grant that we have. So this is just kind of an example of what it might look like, and then you can kind of scroll up, and every employee does this. and we can go to the next page. And I just cut mine out a section. Obviously, we couldn't fit it all on there for you to see. But you can see, like, in the feedlot, you can see where I'm bouncing around and what areas in the feedlot program. And then I do a little bit down in the water plan, and then I'm bouncing up into the WACA, down into AIS. And then the next one shows another section. Lou is all too familiar with this, but you can see the work that we're doing in the LCCMR, like how many hours per day where I'm concentrating on my work. So it's, again, we have to scroll through that whole sheet, but every half hour is charged to the appropriate grant. And I wasn't sure if even our SWCD board knew that that is what we do. But we need to, so that's, and Sarah's like processing, we're putting it in there, and she's putting this all together so that we're charging the correct grant. Let's see. Yeah, and Adam put that together for me, so thank you. As you can see, what we bring into the county as far as SWCD state grants is pretty close to 50-50 of what the county gives us to operate the county program aspect. Because we are a county program heavy SWCD, we are also able to cover some of the county required work with our other grants and stretching the county's dollars that much more. So we will do work, and we also are tracking this too, a variety of different work that we may be asked to do that would typically maybe fall under county work. We charge it to a grant because it also falls into a grant. So we're like, hey, that could work as riparian work. So we're like, instead of just leaving that money out there to hang for the county to cover, we'll apply it towards a grant. So it really is a true work of what I call artistic economic synergy. So it's a lot of work, and Sarah does a really good job helping us through that. But that's what I kind of wanted to share as far as the revenues come in. Hopefully it starts to give you kind of an understanding of what we're doing. And also the last 2 pages are what goes out. As far as expenses. And you'll see at the very bottom, it's a zero what comes in goes out. So, and that's regarding our grant work. Is there any questions about that?
To make the approval on the Soil and Water Board, or?
No, we're gonna skip 5. Yep. Go down to number 5.
Is there any questions on what Deja has presented?
Questions? No, we're okay.
I guess for myself, I'm amazed about how much agriculture does for Todd County, and especially animal agriculture. I knew crops did a lot, but I was surprised. Number 5, for your information, the annual feedlot meeting and farmer appreciation dinner will be next month, almost a month away, on Thursday, March 21st, at the Hub Supper Club at 10 a.m. So just
We hope that some of you can make it. I know Barb's made it in the past. I don't know, Randy, have you ever made it? It's kind of down in your neck of the woods. If you're interested. Tim, you,
Yeah.
whoever. If there's more than 3, just let us know so we can public notice it.
I think usually we just do that automatic, that gives us the freedom.
Tom had a question, do we have to pre-register or just come?
Yeah, you call and let us know just for food purposes.
Okay.
Yep. It's usually the week before, as long as we know the week before.
Any other questions on our reports? Okay, I'll take a motion at this time to adjourn the soil and water conservation portion of this meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, somebody saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're
Okay.
adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You.
At this time, I'll need a motion to to adjourn out of the soil and water joint meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Nazca, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Newman, discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you.
Thank you for asking for that stuff. What's that?
Then we'll go into Public Works. Good morning, Lauren.
Morning.
Morning, Lauren.
First item on the agenda this morning for Public Works is a correction to Board Action Number 20240-206-08. The background was at the last board meeting, we requested the approval to hire Mr. Brian Hollenkamp with the effective start date of actually tomorrow. And once I called him to congratulate him on that, he goes, can I change my mind to February or March 4th? So with that, we need to bring this back to solidify the number, solidify the date on the board action to make it an item of record. So the options are to approve the correction to that board action form with the change in start date to March 4th, 2024. Do not approve it. Our recommendation is to approve the correction to board action to change the start date to March 4th, 2024 for Mr. Brian Hollenkamp.
Okay, I'd ask for a motion for the change of start date for VA 202-40206-08.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Nazca,
approve
is
it.
there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
All right. Our next item is just an informational topic. It's just an announcement that we received a federal HSIP funding award. HSIP stands for Highway Safety Improvement Program. And this is a program through the federal transportation dollars, which counties and cities can act and apply for to receive safety grants. This is a grant that's awarded at a 90-10 rate, so meaning 90% federal dollars, 10% local dollars. And it's a grant to fund the installation of 6-inch ground-in wet reflective edge lines on various county roads. If we can go down to the map, just below that, the map is of the roads actually in 2026, we'll be doing this project, of the roads we're actually paving this year. So it's County Road 86, just west of Long Prairie, and then if we go a little farther down, roads are County Road 15 and County Road 2 just south of Gray Eagle. And the safety improvement is basically a ground-in little trough about 45 mils depth, and they lay in an epoxy or a high-end paint, edgeline stripe with wet reflective elements in there to help basically allow traffic to see the lines for a longer period of time, especially during wet conditions and at night. So it's we've done this for a number of years. It's probably our 7th or 8th project. Great to have the federal government pay 90% of it, and they last probably 2 to 3 times longer than a normal latex paint. So it's just an announcement that we received that grant, and was just here to see if the board has any questions on this grant.
I know they're fantastic. They last a lot longer and you can see them really well.
Yeah, we love doing them, so. Next item on the agenda is a request for the authorization to purchase a tractor mower. The background is in the 2024 road and bridge budget, there's funds for the replacement of Public Works Unit number 36, which is a 2004 Challenger tractor with approximately 5,200 hours on it. Included with that tractor is Unit 48, which is a 2012 Diamond rotary mower. This equipment is planned for replacement this year and is currently in the Todd County Public Works replacement plan. Our options are to approve the attached state bid quote from Midwest Machinery for the purchase of a new John Deere 6155M cab tractor and Diamond rotary mower for $182,446.51, or do not approve any equipment purchases at this time. And our recommendation is to approve the attached state bid quote from Midwest Machinery for a new John Deere tractor and diamond rotary mower for $182,446.51.
Okay, I'll be looking for a motion for the purchase of a tractor mower combination.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Danny, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Nazca. Discussion? Lauren, did you get a bid from anywhere else besides Long Prairie Tractor?
Yeah, we looked at, if we look below, we looked at 3 separate tractors. If there's
Okay.
we scroll down, there's a kind of a table with 3 different options.
We'll get there.
Keep going one more. We looked at John Deere. We looked at New Holland, we looked at Case IH. And we looked specifically at those 3. Typically, what from our vendor with the diamond mower, typically about 90% of their equipment they put on the tractors goes to John Deere. And you'll notice it is a little more expensive than the other tractors. And the reason we were recommending this is specifically, and Paul's here, our maintenance foreman, that can talk about this, but basically it gives us a little more ground clearance so we're not getting hung up on the tractors that's in the ditches. But also specifically, it's got a little higher horsepower as these mowers kind of get into some heavy brush, heavy material. It really bogs down the tractor. And then specifically in the future, we feel that John Deere gives us a greater resale value when we go to trade it in the future. So we did look at those 3 options, and we all went off the state bid through each of those 3 vendors, which were listed on the state bid.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No, just on that too, just thanks for going with an M series and not trying to go with an R series and pay an extra $20,000.
I'll take your word for it. That's outside of my realm of expertise. I'll let you then, or Paul probably knows more than that than I do, so.
The M series actually does a better job for the mower as far as attaching it. R series would give you axle rather than a flanged axle. So that causes issues with mounting the mower.
Right.
So the flange axle actually is cheaper.
Yep.
And the John Deere has bigger rubber.
Yep.
The industry is getting smaller, shorter wheelbase for turning. And this tractor definitely fits our needs. Stability, and mentioned ground.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
All right, thank you. Our last item in the agenda this morning is an authorization to purchase a plow truck. Very similar background with the one we just talked about as far as the tractor. The 2024 road and bridge budget contains funds for the replacement of Unit 22, which is a 2007 Sterling plow truck with approximately 222,000 miles on it. Unit 22 is scheduled for replacement in this fiscal year and is in the current Todd County Public Works Equipment Replacement Plan. So our options are to approve the attached state bid plow truck purchase agreements. One from Boyer Truck, which provides the new truck chassis for $143,561.67. And the second of this combination is from Towmaster Truck and Equipment, and that's for the new snowplow equipment that's mounted on the truck chassis for $165,420. The other option is do not approve any equipment purchases at this time, and our recommendation is to approve the purchase of a new plow truck for the attached purchase agreements for a grand total of $308,981.67.
Okay, is there a motion for the purchase of a plow truck?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase.
Okay, motion by Nazca, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Danny. Discussion?
Yeah, I got one thing,
Yep.
if I may, Barb. I'm just curious, what do you get for a trade-in on a vehicle of 222,400 miles? It says that includes your trade-in value.
The trade-in value is listed on the second
Okay.
purchase order, purchase agreement, bill of sale, whatever they want to call it, and it's the item, go up, sorry,
Okay.
right there below the 152, it listed at $18,000.
Wow, they depreciate quite a bit, don't they?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a lot of miles, but with the conditions that the trucks are in, they're loaded with salt all the time.
Yeah.
So they're
Right.
pretty rusted out.
Yeah.
And with the electronics and the equipment right now, people get nervous that it's all run by wire instead of cable and
Yeah.
mechanical. So once you have shorts in the wire, they're really tough to track down. That's why the purchase
Right.
resale value comes down dramatically.
No problem, thanks.
Yep. And if I may, note that we typically go with the same vendor all the time, just because of the consistency. Boyer being close, they're the vendor for the Western Star. And we typically go with Towmaster, which is down in Litchfield or Paynesville? Litchfield. Towmaster puts on what we call Falls plow equipment. Falls plow equipment is made right in Little Falls, Minnesota. So if we have any problem with that type of equipment, we can get the parts right down the road, so.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do have a question. What's the availability? I mean, do they have them? Are they ready to go? Because we've been dealing with a lot of issues about cancellations and
That's
people ordering stuff.
That's a great question. For example, I think the last truck or the truck before we ordered it was a 26 to 28 month turnaround. I think they're back within about a year, right, Paul? Right. So with that being said, they know the truck's coming, and then we can get on the list with the outfitter, which is Towmaster, and can get on their calendar. So they can figure out when the truck's gonna be delivered, and we're on their calendar for the delivery or construction of the plow equipment to put that on there. So we hope it'll be within a year, which means potentially if it's not delivered by then, we'll be coming back from the board
For
later this year to roll that money over. And I agree with you, Commissioner Newman, it's a nightmare to try to manage that. We got money coming this year, it's spent 1 year and possibly delivered the next year. So thankfully, the auditor's office is willing to work with us on that to make sure we get it all funded in the right year.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
All right, thank you.
Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren.
Is it a check?
Okay. We'll just take a few minute break right now.
We're staying pretty close to on target, time-wise. We're doing pretty good. I think we're doing pretty good so far. Might.
All depends
Enjoy.
who shows, yeah. How long are you in the city at AMC then? Thursday afternoon.
At least you get nice weather to drive in.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
I just, yeah. We just gotta get over it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mike.
Morning, Commissioners. First board action is, for your consideration, is there's a staff member whose current job title is Sheriff's Office Clerical. This title should have been changed to Administrative Assistant when that new title was created a number of years ago. And so we're requesting that change to happen now before the job studies are being done. So the options are to change the current title from the Sheriff's Office Clerical to Administrative Assistant, or not to make the change, and our recommendation is to make the change from Sheriff's Office Clerical to Administrative Assistant.
Okay, I'd ask for a motion to change the Sheriff's Office Clerical and change it to Administrative Assistant. Do I have
So moved, Madam Chair.
motion by Newman? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Noska. Discussion? We went through all the proper steps to get you here, so.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Second board action is the Sheriff's Office would like to thank and express appreciation to individuals who donated to our K-9 and drone funds in 2023. As you know, both those funds are donation driven. They're not budgeted. So the drone donations received were from the American Legion for auxiliary for $100, Glenda Kuhn for $500. K-9 donations were from Gerald Johnson for $50, Heron Trucking for $500, and Minnesota National Bank for $170, and Farmers Union Marketing for $1,000. And we're just asking for acknowledgement of those donations for the K-9 and drone funds from the board.
Okay, and this would be to acknowledge donations received for the K-9 and drone projects and to accept those donations. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Denny. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Noska. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Next two board actions are carryover requests. I'm requesting a carryover for the balance of the K-9 forfeiture and contingency fund from 2023 to 2024 for the amount of $66,120.10. The options are to approve this carryover fund or do not approve, and our recommendation is to approve that carryover fund.
Okay, is there a motion for the carryover fund for the K-9 forfeited funds?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Noska. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
And my last board action would be another carryover fund that I'm requesting to carrying over funds from the vehicle purchase and the vehicle equipment fund at the amount of $184,967.83. Vehicles have been approved for in 2023, and due to delays in production, will not be purchased until hopefully the summer of 2024. So our options are to approve the carryover or not approve, and our recommendation is to approve that carryover fund.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the carryover vehicle funds?
So moved.
Motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning, Mike.
The four items we have before you today are just professional service contracts that we're looking to renew. The first one we have before you this morning is our Widseth professional services related to our groundwater sampling, topographic surveys, and stormwater compliance. For the year 2024, Widseth has provided the attached proposal to perform these services for $17,500. This work is required part of our permit and also by state law for our demolition landfill and our transfer stations. Our options are to approve this director to sign the proposal with Widseth for the $17,500, or deny the solid waste director authority to sign this proposal. It is, our recommendation is to go ahead and sign the proposal with Widseth for the professional services of $17,500. And this is budgeted through our Fund 51 source, so.
Okay, is there a motion for the approval of the professional service agreement with Winseth?
I'll make the motion for approval.
Motion by Danny, is there a second?
Second.
Second Newman, discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and carries. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. The second one, again, is professional services agreement for Bar Engineering. They are the ones who historically do our annual groundwater data review and analysis and reporting. For 2024, Bar has provided the attached proposal to perform these services for the amount of $14,000. It's a slightly higher in 2023, just because we had a lot of initial setup at that time. This work, again, is required by state law and facility permits for the demolition landfill. Options is to, again, approve the director to sign proposal with Bar for services for the $14,000, or deny the solid waste director authority to sign this proposal. It is our recommendation to go ahead and have the director sign proposal with Bar for professional services for the $14,000 fund amount. Again, this is a solid waste budgeted item.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion for the professional service agreement with Bar.
I'll make a motion to authorize.
Okay, motion by Nasca, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny, discussion. This is just a yearly contract.
That is correct. Yep. And we're required to do 2 samplings a year, spring and fall.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Thank you. The third item before you is our STEP contract renewal. STEP performs recycling sorting duties within our facility 5 days a week from 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. This department, again, signs this new contract with STEP annually for their services. The estimated cost is approximately $150,000 a year for their labor. This, again, is a budgeted item. It is our recommendation is to approve the contract. The options are to approve or do not approve. So our recommendation, again, is to approve the contract with STEP.
Okay, is there a motion to sign the contract for the 2024 STEP contract?
So moved.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Danny, discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Thank you. The last item we have before you today is aged accounts. Every month, we spend time and effort chasing customers with past due accounts over 90 days. The department is taking the action to remove 5 accounts with balances past due to the Todd County Auditor's Office. The total is $2,739.27. These accounts have been turned over to collections with recommendation from the Audit Treasurer's Office. The department requests approval to remove these aged accounts. This is an item that was discussed among our solid waste committee as well. Options is to approve the motion or to do not approve this motion. It is our recommendation to approve the department to remove these aged accounts.
Okay, is there a motion to remove the aged accounts?
So moved.
Motion by Denny, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, Nasca, discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair. So right now, these have been turned over to the county attorney, correct?
That is correct. And we'd like to thank John's office for helping us and assisting with this. He has issued the letters of collection, and these are now completely turned over to a collection agency as well. So,
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you.
thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. The first item here this morning is the Clean Water Partnership Septic Loan General Obligation Note. Planning and Zoning, along with the Auditor Treasurer's Office, has worked with Kennedy Graven Chartered to develop a general obligation note and resolution as required for the loan funding through the Clean Water Partnership. Resolution has been provided for your review, and repayment of the loans to the MPC is secured through the special assessment on the applicant's property taxes. Options are approval of the general obligation note and resolution, or to deny it. Recommendation is approval of the general obligation note and resolution in order to receive loan funding through the Clean Water Partnership for a county septic loan program. This is the same program we operated before, but we have to start from scratch essentially. So the minor changes are with the interest rate and the term for these loans. Otherwise, it'll be operated exactly the same.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion for the CWP septic loan general obligation note.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Denny. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Nazca. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
All right, thank you. Next is the authorization to sign the PLSS grant documents. The PLSS monument grant application requires an official with authority to sign grant documents. County board action is needed to authorize staff to sign documents. Options are to authorize myself, Adam Osford, to sign the PLSS grant documents, or do not authorize. Recommendation is to authorization of Adam Osford as the official with authority to sign documents related to the PLSS monument grant application. We had a group email trying to address this, being that Doug with GIS is going to most likely be the day-to-day contact, and now he's under the Planning and Zoning's department. Just wanted the board action, so I would sign those. Doug would continue to be the day-to-day contact, but we really operate as a group moving forward. Denise's office is involved with the financial side of things, and then our county surveyors involved in his staff is putting the application together. So this was just to formalize it and have the authorization to have myself sign those documents where they're required.
Okay. Then I'd ask for a motion to authorize for Adam to sign the PLSS grant documents.
I'll make a motion to authorize.
Motion by Nazca. Is there a second?
Second it.
Second by Newman. Discussion. We did have Kim asked to be added on to our contact list, so.
For this grant? Okay,
Okay.
perfect, awesome. Yep.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is the review of CUP 2020-027. During the February 1st, 2024 Planning Commission public hearing, CUP 2020-027 was reviewed for failure to substantially complete the conditions of the CUP within 36 months from the date the CUP was granted. Planning Commission heard public comments and developed a recommendation to allow a continuation of the CUP for an additional 2 years to complete these conditions with a review date of February 1st, 2026. Options are to allow the continuation with the review date for compliance, or establish findings and revoke the CUP. The recommendation is to adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and allow continuation of the CUP 2020-027 with the review date of February 1st, 2026.
Okay, is there a motion for the continuance of CUP 2020-027 with a review date of February 1st of 2026?
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
can we have a little discussion prior?
Absolutely.
So this one here, do you have a little information on this one, Adam, on the CUP?
Information as
Or
to,
background on what's missing? they
yeah, so
have?
this was for a 60-site campground in Little Elk Township, I believe.
Yeah, but what hasn't
Yeah.
been done?
Oh, sure. One of the conditions, the main one was, one of the conditions was screening along the east and north lines. That north line, I believe, is along County 14, and it's the county line between Todd and Morrison on the east side. That vegetation has not even been planted yet. That was the main condition. He also doesn't have pads or the roads built. Water lines and electrical are in the trenches are dug, and I believe the lines are in, but nothing's connected. Not that those were part of the conditions, but the one condition that was not met was the screening requirements.
Okay. well, this goes back to some of those ones we've had before that
Absolutely.
the screening didn't get done, and now we just let them drag on and on and on, and, you know,
So when was this cup first issued?
December of 2020. In 3 years would have been December 2023, and then brought this to the planning commission after that.
And now they're gonna give them another 2 years?
That's what the recommendation of the planning commission was. And that is not the direction you have to go. You can allow less time, or you can establish that, let me look here.
So what happens if he doesn't do it within this 2-year time frame?
And we would go through that same process of review, and it can be revoked at that time. Or, I'll read this part of the ordinance to you. This is section 505N. Activities granted by conditional use permit expire or are invalid unless they are substantially completed within 36 months. And there's a whole bunch more, but essentially in a case where no other permits are required, substantially completed means you have to meet all the conditions of that CUP. So the ordinance says they're invalid or, expire or considered invalid after that 36 months. So I think depending on how the board feels, there is enough to support going either direction with this one.
So another question is, what was the vote on this? Were they all in favor of
I
extending
believe
it
it was
to 2 years?
5-0.
If I may, Madam Chair, a little bit on that night too. He, 2020 was issued, he was telling us about how much issues he had getting contractors come during COVID. He said that couldn't get anybody to show up, and he had, I think he had proof of all the materials he had there on hand, but he couldn't get anybody to come, so, but with the screening thing, from what he was explaining on the map to us, where the screening would have to be, if you put the screening in first, and when the trenches were made for the wire and water, he would literally rip all of them right out again. And that was the discussion that night. I mean, I don't know if you could have made a different way to talk, but it sounded like he was going to be tearing them out if you had put them in first. But it sounded like there was quite a few issues with COVID during those first 2 years as far as getting people on hand, and he's trying to stay in the county for as far as work, and then now he has moved out of the county and got contractors outside the county, which right, is that right, Adam? He got outside?
He had one contractor, I don't know for sure when it comes to the electrical and stuff like that. The septic stuff was contractor from Motley area.
Okay, that was just a discussion that he had for the board that evening about, but
Madam Chair.
Yes.
that's just,
I mean, I'm fairly familiar with the site.
Okay.
I mean, I drive by it quite often. It's just, and, you know, it's in my district as well. And I guess that the excuse of not being able to put up the screen, I mean, he put a pile of money into putting that, and this isn't monetary, but the pile of money into the water lines, the electrical that's in the ground. I mean, the screening should have gone first. I mean, it was the least expensive part of the process, and it was not done. And that's 3 years ago. I mean, yeah, we can blame COVID all we want for all these years, but I mean, I don't think if we do anything, if we don't revoke it, I think we give less time for sure. I mean, that screening's got to be established by like June or something, or else it's revoked, because I don't think we can give 2 more years.
I'd say like a year. You know, give them a year.
You want to give them 1 more year? And that's fine.
I mean, so my question is Adam, did he get the sewer system done?
Yes, that is completed.
Sewer system is
Yep,
completed.
it's a very large dump station type system with 4 large tanks.
Because again, I'm voting on something that I don't have a lot of information on, so maybe
Yeah.
it might be a little bit my fault for not researching it more, but
I believe he did say also he has got, I forget how many trees bought from the county already.
Yeah, yep, he made a purchase with the Soil and Water for some shrubs, and I don't know if there were other trees with it, but he did purchase some sort of vegetation to establish there, I don't know. But that's definitely an option, Commissioner Noska. You could back that date down to February 1st of 2025 or something. That would give him this construction season plus us time to get out there and look at things. Or you could back that up even further.
Right. And I mean, so at this point where he sits, he still can't have a camper on site
No,
until that screen is established.
right.
And what is considered established?
I have long been of the opinion that screening is screening. It's intended to screen. So if you plant a little 2-foot shrub now, you may have met the condition, but you aren't providing the screening that the condition was intended. No, the spirit and intent of the condition is what I look at.
That's what I mean. If you bought the trees from us, you might be a seedling that's 6 inches tall. That's gonna be 10 years till it's actually screening anything. I mean, it should have been planted immediately. That would have been ideal. He'd have 3 years ahead of the process right now.
Well, then our sanitarian has to go out and take a look at it too, make sure it passes all the public health
Absolutely.
specs.
Yeah, we run into this quite often.
Anyone ready to make a motion?
I mean, do you think you need a full year then? Is that what we're looking at?
Well, I mean, you're not gonna plant trees November, December, so
for
you
sure.
could back that up even further. If we're looking at making sure he gets them, give him the spring and the fall, you could set that review date to November 1st of 24, and make sure that all the conditions are being met at that time.
And that's fine, but the trees aren't going to be sufficient for screening even in 36 months.
Absolutely not. Yep.
So, I mean, we were gonna have to revoke it anyway at some point.
That, I can throw another option in there. Well, we do have on here that we started this, so March 8th would be 60 days from the time we started. No, I'm looking at the wrong one. I apologize. Yeah, March 8th, which is 2 at the same date. March 8th. So do we have another meeting prior
We have a meeting,
March?
3rd maybe, March 5th.
Yeah, yes, yep. Okay. That could be an option. I think I've heard enough here that maybe I have some questions I want to reference John or somebody on timing of these things. So you could take the option to just table this and I could bring it back on that March 5th meeting. We do have time after that potentially if we needed to get it back to the planning commission also.
Adam, can I make a suggestion to you?
Sure.
It's just thrown out there. This started in 2020. If you would have planted then, I mean, typically you get a tree or shrub, depending on, but you get 8 inches to a foot of growth a year on a good year with good conditions. That's been 4 years. You could make the argument, well, you need to plant something at least 4 feet tall. If that, I mean,
Right.
Yep.
if that would make
I mean,
something.
adequate screening, yeah, I agree with you. Something that's actually gonna do the job of the screening, not something we're gonna wait 10 years for. And
Right, but you can,
there's gonna be campers parked on the thing
I mean,
before the screening's adequate.
right. Watch, obviously, that's a financial burden, but you have lost out on 4 years
Right.
of growth.
And that's something that Mr. Hartsock's gonna have to decide himself to make sure he plants adequate trees to achieve that screening. When you review a CUP that's already been issued, it doesn't open up the door to change conditions that existed. So we're only looking at the conditions that exist now and making a decision based on that.
Okay.
And what is the board's,
Well, my wishes are, let's remand it back, I think, at least.
Okay,
and
to
let them
table?
it'll be tabled, but remand it back to them to discuss a shorter time period.
Okay, yeah, that's a great option. We'll just, we don't have to renotice it, so this will just get at the end of the March Planning Commission
Yeah,
agenda and you'll see it
just
later
to-
in the
Just
month.
to review that and what adequate screening
need
is
a
going to
motion?
consist of.
Yeah, you'll need a motion.
we'll need a motion, pardon?
You had somebody with a question back.
Oh, excuse me.
Since I'm kind of tooting my own horn here, I do tree planting, forestry service. Generally, we've got an interesting spring coming here, you're talking about this March 6th meeting. The guy better get the damn trees in the contest in March, because this spring is gonna push away. Generally, the state says we don't start planting. Generally, statewide, we don't start planting until 15th. That's not gonna happen this year. It'll be the middle of March. They'll be pulling trees out of the door. Last year, they didn't pull trees out of the door until the 1st of May.
Right.
This year, they're gonna be pulling them early, so whoever this guy is, I don't
Yeah.
understand all this. Put my name in the ring.
Oh. You can make that connection, I believe,
Yeah.
with Mr. Hartsock.
They grow fast, they provide a screen, whatever. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the comment.
I will ask for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to remand back to planning commission for further review of the time period.
Okay.
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Motion by Nazca, second by Newman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Okay, our next one was an application for an event center. However, he had called last week and wanted to withdraw his application from consideration. So we asked him to send that to us in writing, and we have yet to receive that. So my recommendation with this is that we just table this and allow the applicant the time to submit that formal documentation, and hopefully we'll have it for that March, what did we say, 5th meeting with it in writing, so we can just withdraw this, but to just put it on pause for the time being.
Okay, I'd ask for a motion to send this back to the planning commission, is that, or
We just need to table
withdraw?
this, and we'll formally accept that withdrawal once we get it in writing from him. It doesn't need to go back to the planning commission. I am absolutely certain it's getting withdrawn.
Okay, is there a motion to table?
I'll make the motion to table it.
And I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Denny, seconded by Newman to table. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Okay, and next is the Schwarzentroober request for rezoning, an application for rezoning of parcels 2300-18700 and 2300-18701 in Soul Prairie Township. Was submitted on January 2nd, 2024. The request is for rezoning from AF1 to AF2. The application was reviewed by the Planning Commission during the February 1st public hearing. And the final recommendation from the Planning Commission was to grant the rezone with the conditions below. Options are to grant the rezone with the conditions, establish the findings to deny the rezone, or remand it back to the Planning Commission. Recommendation is to adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and grant the rezone to parcel 2300-18700 and I see a typo there, I apologize, 2300-18701 from AF1 to AF2 with the following conditions. 1, all future land uses shall abide by the Todd County Planning and Zoning Ordinance, and 2, landowners shall abide by all their applicable federal, state, and local standards.
Adam, do you have a map of that? I think there was.
Thought I had one, but maybe I missed that on this one.
It's here.
Okay.
Yes, there.
And
Just to the
what's
east
the
is-
two parcels is, because I only seen that one parcel in the blue.
Where you see the cutout around there on that the west, along 145th. Should I just
For
point
the
at it there?
buildings?
This piece right here.
Right here.
Yep. That's the other parcel. So there, Daniel owns that whole 40. He's requesting to rezone the whole 40. It just happens to be 2 parcels at the moment.
Okay, so he wants to put it back into one parcel.
No, because they have the intention of building another house south of that other smaller parcel, but you need to rezone the whole 40. The decision's based on 40 acres in AF1 and AF2. So, and he has complete ownership of the whole 40. So rezoning the whole thing in order to establish one additional dwelling
My
site.
next question is, what's the land around it? Is it AF1 or AF2? Because this
to
is where we're
the-
getting into some kind of problems as we go forward.
Right, I believe and I'd have to look at the map to confirm this, the connection to AF2 was directly to the east and north, and then it was AF1 further south and west.
Okay.
That's something I will include in future rezoning. That's a great piece of information. I apologize
It
it
is,
wasn't
because
there.
as we're going through this feedlot ordinance, we're finding more and more of this coming up, AF1, AF2.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I know it's not a spot zone, I just don't remember precisely where those connections were. So I will include that on future rezoning requests.
I will ask for a motion for the request of rezoning. How do you pronounce his last name?
Sports and Truber.
Okay,
I'll make the motion to rezone that.
okay. Motion by Denny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Nazca. Discussion.
Yes, Madam Chair, so this is one of the first ones we've had from Stowe Prairie since they reverted their planning and zoning back to the county.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
We have one board action form to present to you today. It being a resolution establishing support for Clay County. Some background. Clay County is seeking support from surrounding counties in their efforts to request Minnesota bonding funds for infrastructure and the development of a psychiatric residential treatment facility. The overall impact of this request is to establish a PRTF programming to support the needs of children from the surrounding communities and counties with serious and complex mental health needs. We've attached that resolution as requested to support. Your options are to approve the resolution establishing support for Clay County to request Minnesota bond funds for infrastructure and the development of the psychiatric residential treatment facility in Clay County, or to not approve. It's our recommendation to approve the resolutions establishing support. They did come back, I believe, in the previous bonding year, and were not successful with their request, and we did support it at that time as well.
Okay, thank you. And I know that both John and Derek were up to Moorhead at our last meeting and got to have a tour of the facilities and so forth. So any input from you guys, or?
Just that it's a big need within the community and within our area. A lot of the options that we have in this field are not close, so keeping kids closer to the community and connection with their family is important. So we would support their recommendation, or their seeking the service.
Might I add, many counties are sending kids who do need this kind of help states away. So it is, it's not healthy for the kids not to be close to their families, but quite expensive for counties to get the need met for these kids as well.
There's a real need for it, very much so. So with that, I would ask for a motion to, for establishing a support for Clay County.
I'll make the motion. to
Motion by
establish support.
Nazca. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion? Hearing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Thank you for the support.
Thank you.
You guys.
Denise, read this one.
Denise, you want to read these in?
The commissioners have a resolution brought forth here, resolution in favor of wolf hunting and trapping season. The background is the Todd County Board of Commissioners recognize the importance of balanced wildlife management, in particular wolf management for sustainable wildlife population for ecological equilibrium in both human and wildlife. A resolution to support advocating to Senator Amy Klobuchar for changes in federal legislation is attached for consideration of adoption. Options are to adopt the attached resolution or do not, and his recommendation to adopt the resolution in favor of wolf hunting and trapping season. And the resolution reads as follows. Whereas the Todd County Board of Commissioners recognize the importance of balance of wildlife management and believes that returning wolf management to the state of Minnesota would enable more effective stewardship of local ecosystems, and whereas the Todd County Board of Commissioners acknowledges the necessity of sustainable wildlife population control measures, including regulated hunting to maintain ecological equilibrium and safeguard the interests of both human and wildlife. Now therefore be resolved, the Todd County Board of Commissioners hereby express its support for advocating Senator Amy Klobuchar to endorse the removal of wolves from federal protection, thereby empowering the state of Minnesota to responsibly manage wolf population and implement a regulated hunting season as deemed appropriate by state wildlife authorities. This resolution is grounded in the belief that localized management strategies are essential for promoting the coexistence of wolves in local communities while ensuring the conservation of Minnesota's diverse ecosystems for future generations.
Okay, thank you. So there's a resolution in favor of wolf hunting and trapping season.
So move.
Motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Denny. Discussion.
If I may, Madam
Yes.
Chair, on this one here, this may read a little different than we're proposing, though, because we are not necessarily in favor of a hunting season. We're in favor of the state managing wolf population. And that's where I stand on that. Now, I will vote for this, but I want to make it clear that we're not saying we're in favor of having a season right now, but let the state take care of our own business and we'll take care of them as needed.
Manage them.
Yes, do you want to
No,
change the wording in the
no,
resolution?
The way it's
or
worded here is just fine, but in the actual board action form,
In the board action form?
it's stated as supporting the hunting and trapping season.
So instead, we could type resolution in favor of management
Management.
of
yeah.
both hunting and trapping?
Allowing the
State-
state to manage.
Allowing the
yeah,
state to manage.
Manage
We
the
can-
whole
You
population.
can write that
Yeah,
statement with your,
Okay,
yeah.
And Madam Chair, we're not the only county that's passing this. There's other counties that are,
Yep.
okay, and
you know,
Commissioner Newman, you made the motion?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
accept that within your motion?
yes.
Denny, you made the second?
Yep.
And you accept the change? Okay,
yep, we'll get that in there as that, stated that way.
okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and it carries. Then we have a 12.2 that was added.
This was added, Madam Chair, and I do not have a board action typed
It was added
currently.
this morning.
But we will mimic the other ones where we light the cupola upstairs above the courthouse. So the resolution will be lighting of the cupola to a blue light for the remainder of the month in honor of the fallen Burnsville police officers and the Burnsville Fire EMT first responder.
Okay,
We'll type that up though as we have other ones in our archives that we can. So if somebody wants to pass that,
okay, is there a motion for
I'll move
approval?
that, Madam Chair.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Nazca. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you, Denise.
yes.
Then we'll go ahead and go into standing reports. Auditor Treasurer.
We are in the thick in the election process because our next board meeting will actually be a election day for PNP, which is the presidential nomination primary. And so that'll be happening that day. Auditors will be here the end of March. Now we are seeking, we're asking the auditors if maybe we can have an extension for a few weeks just to, they're asking for a lot of information and a lot of information from departments that maybe have somebody new in place. And so they're kind of struggling. And so just to get the data that they need, it's still tentatively planned for the end of March, but I may be coming back in March saying that they'll be here backed up a couple weeks into April if their schedule allows at Clifton, Larson, Allen. Just because there's a lot of departments that have to pull data for them, that they're not getting that data pulled in the need that the auditors needed. So look for that to be coming forward. I'm not sure on that. Like I said, AB is open now through March 4th. We'll be open this Saturday, well, Saturday of March 2nd for that as well, if anybody wants to vote absentee. And then I'm off to, I won't be staying for the work session. I'll have my chief running that because I'm off to the Mako conference and we're in the middle of calculating taxes for tax statements in March, so it's
Okay.
never ending, but we'll get her done.
Thank you.
Yes.
A county attorney?
Oh, there's nothing. Madam Chair, there's nothing new to report from my office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners report, Nazca?
I don't have a ton of real important things to mention here, other than, we had the Todd County Development Corporation meeting last week, and we've made an agreement with, Melissa Wyman, start in that position that Rick Utek currently holds, mid-March. So we've got someone locked in, we've got the contract negotiations taken care of, which is very nice. And we've also, we had Todd Wadena Community Corrections, and we had a little shop update, where they're at. They've got the footings in, waiting on trusses and plumbing permit. So.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes, Madam Chair. On the 7th and 8th, I attended the ditch seminar up in Alexandria at Arrowwood. AMC put it on. It was really educational. I was surprised how much money they spend on ditches in southwest Minnesota. It's no problem spending 18, 19 million do their ditches. It's just bizarre. But again, the land values down there, they were saying we're running about 15,000 an acre. So it was a good seminar to attend. On the 12th, I had personnel. 13th, I had CPT personnel by Zoom. 14th, we had department head meeting, and I had the park board. On the 15th, I had solid waste at 8 o'clock, and Sauk River policy meeting, one watershed, one plan that afternoon, and that's all I got.
Commissioner Denny?
Nothing new to report as of now. After last week's board meeting, I was out of the office for a week and a half with some medical issues with one of my children, so I ended up missing a few meetings. I was able to attend some that were via Zoom or call, so that's all I have.
Okay. I attended the ditch meeting here we had that evening in Long Prairie. Also attended the bid opening for our solid waste facility plant. Had corrections, had personnel, department head meeting, had the CHB meeting in Staples, and had the finance meeting with the solid waste department as far as the bids. And I believe they're coming, the solid waste is coming to our March 5th work session, bringing forth what they've found out so far. With that, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting until March 5th.
So moved.
Motion by Noska, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you. We'll take 5 minutes before. Oh, we are alive.
Why not?
We okay, Jolene? Okay, we'll start with Jackie, I guess.
Good morning, Madam Chair,
Good morning.
Commissioners again. A couple things, just administratively, we're here for the work session, as that's how the process starts. We have revised our care coordinator job description. The job description was revised because it's a position that could either be done by a social worker or an RN. So we had two job descriptions, social worker, RN, and really our intent was to blend that to be one job description. So either a social worker or an RN could hold that position. Because even when there's an opening and we post it, it looks kind of confusing. It looks like we have two openings when we really have one, because either discipline can apply for that position. So just for administratively and of ease, we're not requesting to hire anybody, we're just requesting to revise the job description to be one versus two.
Yeah, and it really doesn't change what they do. We
No.
didn't really have to change much when we melded them together.
It doesn't change pay scale
Nope,
or
nope,
anything so
'cause
forth?
they're on the same scale.
Yeah, okay. And Randy, or Commissioner Newman and myself been through this a couple times, so I don't know if you guys want to have any questions for?
And really, Madam Chair, it's really because it is a new job description, which is why we're bringing it to work session.
Yep.
To then, if approved, we'll bring it to board, but it's taking those two, blending it to one, but it would be a new job description.
But no new personnel?
Right, no person to put it in, just to get it on record.
Okay,
You talk about burnout a lot in your departments, which is true. This one, you don't think this would maybe go down that path, or no?
No, I don't think so. At this point, the hiring of the last care coordinator is certainly going to help if we can get some qualified individuals to apply and want to accept that caseload size, which always, when we can make it more manageable and allow them to do a really good job at their job versus a high caseload, that is what's going to help, I think, in the long run. And the comp worth study, I won't, mention that as well.
Perfect.
okay. And this will go on the comp worth, or are we waiting till?
I believe the current, with the comp worth, the current job description is what they're utilizing right now until
Okay.
this is approved, formally approved.
Okay. Any other questions for the team? Okay, we'll plan on seeing you at the March 5th board meeting then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next one is the request for an OSS 2, which is office support. Two, there's one and two, so this is for two. We're requesting a full-time position. We have a part-time position right now that we would like to bump up with the work. But I'll let Catherine kind of talk about the duties and how we plan to fill that with our financials, so.
Sure. This is in my unit. So this is currently a office support specialist too that's working 32 hours a week. She requested to go full-time, and I very much encouraged that. We have a number of new grants in my area that we could use her support on. Currently, she's helping with homeless prevention aid, our response sustainability grant, and then we have some additional funding through our foundational public health responsibilities. So this is an employee that's been here for a number of years, and I think will be a big asset to add her another 8 hours a week.
She also works very closely with our WIC clients, and those numbers have gone up significantly, if you want to kind of share those
Oh,
numbers as
sure.
well.
And again, I don't see her doing more work in WIC because unfortunately the budget doesn't support that in our WIC budget, but she does do WIC 2 days a week currently. And our numbers continue to rise to about 750 is what we're doing in our WIC, which is the highest we've had in 10 years for our WIC clients.
So with this request, again, we start at work session because it is a change in the FTEs to then move to the next step as
Coming to the
approved.
board.
Yeah.
Any questions? No, we'll see you at the March 5th then, board meeting?
Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Real good, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Hello again. So with me today is the city of Barville, Bobby Joe Fry with the city, and Mr. Kent Lawaji with Bolton and Mink, who's their engineer. And they've reached out to me requesting approval for a project they have proposed possibly this summer to do a little water main work along County Road 21 and the inclusion of a basic trail along the edge of County Road 21. This is kind of an uncommon thing for us, as we don't have this condition anywhere else in the county. So with that, we kind of talked about it, and I prepared the attached cooperative agreement, which would then, if approved, would allow the city to construct this trail inside the right-of-way of County Road 21. So with that, I'll hand it over to the city to kind of give a brief description of what they're proposing to construct later this summer.
Thanks, Lauren. As you can see on the screen, kind of the red line on the south side of County 21 would be the proposed trail location. It's east of Highway 71 between Main Street and Creamery Avenue. The next page, figure number 2, shows 3 potential trail layouts that we've put together for where that trail would need to cross Harris Creek. There are 2 arch pipe culverts there, which is technically a bridge under the county's jurisdiction. So it would appear that regardless of where we want to position that trail, those culverts would need to be extended. Option 1 would have the trail separated from the road, similar to the rest of the alignment along that entire stretch of the county road. Option 2 would be basically extending the shoulder another 10 feet wider, which is probably the least safe option of the 3. And option 3 would be constructing the blue line there would represent proposed curb and gutter with the trail up and behind the curb and gutter to separate it from the traffic. So we're anticipating that option 1 is going to be the preferred layout. At this point, we anticipate the costs for all 3 are likely similar, considering the majority of the cost here is going to be the culvert extensions. The rest of the trail is proposed to be located near the south edge of the county right-of-way. And that option 1 would fit with that layout throughout wherever the trail is located in the county right-of-way.
Questions?
If I may, the attached agreement lays out the roles and responsibilities of both parties, which grants the city to construct and operate the trail within the county right-of-way. It also defines the responsibilities of the cost, meaning the construction is 100% the city's responsibility, the maintenance is 100% the city's responsibility. So there's really no cost for us to allow the city to do this. We're just basically partnering with our local entity to help facilitate the continuation of this trail as it connects from whatever street that is, Creamery, over basically to Highway 71, using our right-of-way to accomplish that.
Interesting, I hadn't heard this until I seen it come forward here. Do you have any more plans to do more bike trails or not, or?
No, this is just more of a walking trail. I mean,
Okay.
It's built to the specs of bike trail, but just to make connections in the community for walkers and.
Okay, and that's really safe, because the way that makes that, where 21 comes off of in Barville, and that's where basically it's going. Any questions? It doesn't have to be brought to board for a motion then, to move forward?
Yeah, we brought it here to the work session just to,
Yeah.
for informational, if there's any questions or comments. And then I plan on bringing it back the next board meeting for you as the board to approve this cooperative agreement. If then approved, then we'll sign it and submit it to the city for their consideration. Reason being, they want to construct it this summer, and as we're designing, they're moving forward, they have to know yes or no, so they can prepare the necessary construction documents.
Okay. And you're okay with option 1, Lauren? You
That's
know,
the
as far
preferred,
as-
absolutely. We'd rather have it separated. I feel it's a safer condition for walkers and potentially young bicyclists that may or may not be really good at keeping within the boundaries of a trail. So being separated from the road is a lot better than being on the shoulder.
Okay,
Definitely the preferred option for us, I think for the city as well.
okay. there's no other questions, you want to bring it to the March 5th
Will do.
board meeting then? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Adam.
We're doing Dairy Ridge?
Dairy
first?
Ridge.
Yeah. Okay, good morning again. We wanted to provide an opportunity here this morning for any last questions, concerns, things related to the Dairy Ridge application. We do have some brief updates here and some information. I guess the first thing, I had received a copy that Dairy Ridge, this is permit 1988, 3400. David might be better able to explain what well this is connected to, but the amended waters appropriation permit from DNR was granted. But maybe I'll allow you to further explain what that is or where that site is located. And then following up from the last work session where we had left off, is that based on the conversation and the concerns raised, that we were going to try to draft up some additional conditions to help alleviate those concerns. So I have those drafted here too to walk through at any point if you're ready to. But maybe it makes sense to take these things one step at a time, or if you, however you want to proceed. So I don't know if you want to, I got a copy of the permit here. Is this was the well that previously was not a part of the permit and is now permitted?
Dan.
Dan knows.
Dan, can you come up here, please?
You bet, yeah.
So this is Dan Whitney from, he's a renowned hydrologist that we've engaged with to work with the DNR to put a plan together. So perhaps you can comment on this more than me.
Right, so the permit that was amended that Adam had mentioned is from what we call Pivot 3, which is south of the dairy, the Pivot 1 area. And it resulted in a reduction of from 54 million gallons per year to 45 million gallons per year. So a reduction of 13 acre inches. And where that well, what aquifer that well pulls from is called the H1 aquifer. And that's the one that's extremely robust. And where the DNR has been monitoring the water levels for a couple decades, and water levels have stayed steady for the most part. And so that one has been taken care of. Mark Anderson amended it. And then we have a few other amendments out there that I'm not sure, Adam, are you aware, or is the board aware of those amendments?
I think we were aware that you were pursuing those things, but don't have an update beyond that.
Right, okay. So this Pivot 1 permit that currently exists, and it's referred to as 1993-3200, that is at 82 million gallons per year currently, and we put in an amendment to reduce that appropriation down to 8 million gallons per year. And so even if with the addition of the additional cows, with the expansion of the dairy, it results in a reduction of permitted appropriation of 64 million gallons per year from that given aquifer. And that's what we call the B1 aquifer. So it's much different than the H1 aquifer, the B1 aquifer definitely.
Is the B1 aquifer, Dan, the one that's by their farm then?
It is.
And that's the one that all the neighbors are concerned about, very concerned?
Correct, yeah, that's the one where there's been well interference
Yeah.
complaints and resolutions in the past 2 years. Yep, that's the one. So recognizing that, taking the pressure, the stress off of the B1 aquifer, and then moving that stress over to the H1 aquifer is what the plan is, and a new permit application is going to be applied for. And Mark and I have been in communication, Mark Anderson and I have been in communication.
Applied for?
Correct.
So it hasn't been done yet?
No, it has not been done. So there's a couple step process. So the well that's currently in that area, there's an existing well. That one is going to be used to, if you will, transfer the water from the H1 aquifer over to the Pivot 1 system. And that well, Mark has mentioned that we just need to put together, and we did submit what they call a preliminary well construction assessment for that well, even though it's already been constructed and in place. It's because we're asking for 84 million gallons of water out of that well. And so Mark says, okay, with something like that, we probably should have the groundwater technical unit look at that in St. Paul. So and that's what they do when they get a PWCA. They look at it and then they do their assessment and then they come back and say, okay, this is what could be potential problems, something to look forward when you apply for the permit.
Okay, so that hasn't been done yet either then?
Not from that, for that well,
Okay.
that's in the H1 aquifer, that is correct.
Yeah.
I anticipate in the next 2 weeks. that
Okay,
permit will
you're hoping within the next 2 weeks?
I am, yeah. Yep. Generally, the PWCAs take roughly 2 to 3 weeks for a review. The permits take longer, but the preliminary well construction assessments are about
Okay.
2 to 3 weeks.
Commissioners, any other questions?
I don't at this time.
No, but when we get ready to vote on this in March, I'd like to have at least a map showing location and everything,
Locations of
the wells.
The wells,
Okay,
yeah,
and
okay.
what you were describing there as far as changing from Pivot 1 or whatever, and
And the
Well, that-
aquifer.
We
Yeah,
have
the
those maps
aquifers.
now. I think they were sent to you in your packet last time.
For like where the Pivot 1, Pivot 3 things are, okay.
yeah,
But you do have them.
okay. As long as we have them when we get ready to vote.
I can make sure to include that in the board packet for the.
And actually, it's nice to have it in paper form.
Yep.
Because it's really hard to keep track of them as we're visiting and talking, where we're going, where they could all be laid out in front of us at the time.
Right.
So,
You
thank
you do have Dan here now. He has a copy. Would you like to huddle around the copy so you get some sense? Because it's not completely intuitive.
It's a paper copy.
Yeah, Adam, can you just go make make 5 copies, make one for Bob too? We should be able to go through this door.
I can handle it.
You got your, yeah,
Is this a color copy or no?
yeah, I believe it is.
And one thing, if I could add, Mark Anderson, in the letter that he put together, describing kind of all of this, he does mention that there's likely there'll be a condition that'll be put on the permit, mainly the permit that supplies Pivot 1. And that's where the B1 aquifer, again, the aquifer of concern, and that condition would be long-term monitoring of the observation well that was installed. I think that was last year. Yeah, it was installed last year. It was currently being monitored, but it'll probably be a 3-year type conditional monitoring on that, so, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we're able to observe what's happening.
I think from what I understand with Mark, there's,
Maybe.
would there happen to be basically
Yeah, we'll get a
a
little
level
bit.
in that well that the water couldn't go below?
Yeah, that's they have the thresholds.
That have a
DNR.
threshold on that monitoring well, if the water table ever dropped below that, that it would basically suspend your water appropriation permit?
That's a really good point, yeah, so they have the 50% threshold and the 25% threshold, and if you just think about it as a water column
Yep.
in a well, and so from the top of the aquifer to where the water level is, if that drops, if that gets to the 50% level, then there's management practices that have to be in place.
Right.
And then if it gets to the 25% level, meaning only 25% of that water column's left above the aquifer, then that's when they would put in suspensions or whatever, so.
Okay, if I could come back with a follow-up question, Dan. We're getting a lot of calls from the neighbors. They say you're at the bottom of that aquifer already. So how do you have it at 50% and 25% if you're on the bottom already?
Right, so the water level is definitely not on the bottom of that aquifer. If it was, the permits, we wouldn't even be amending any permits or applying for any.
Okay.
Simply because
You
it
have,
would,
including this morning, we had a gentleman come in and said they had to put a new well in, or had to lower wells. So what's going on?
right, so what happens is, I mentioned that water column.
Yep.
Okay, and so there's, well, I'll just use an example, let's just say there's 100 feet of water above the aquifer. Okay, so there's domestic wells that are drilled in the area that may only go down 40 feet, okay, or yeah, 40 or 50 feet. And then the well driller just puts the pump roughly 5 to 10 feet below the actual static water level, non-pumping. So then there's, the irrigation systems get going and all the other things get going during the summer. The city pulls from it as well, the high school, and it starts lowering that water level in the aquifer. But what happens is it lowers it below the pump intake of the pump that's in that well. And so that pump starts sucking air. And, you know, the common phrase is, my well's gone dry. No, it really hasn't. It's just the water level in your well has dropped below the pump intake. So there's a couple things that can be done. Either the driller comes out and puts another 20 feet of, if the well's deep enough, puts another 20 feet of drop pipe, they call it, and then brings that pump back down below, 20 feet below we'll call it now the pumping water level. Or if the well's not deep enough, then that's when they have to drill a new well. And they have to go deeper in the aquifer so they can drop that pump further down into the casing.
Okay, Dan, how much further down did they have to go?
In terms of the
In terms of the new wells that were put in?
that were put in?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Do you recall, David?
There were 2 wells that were just points that I replaced, and then the other ones, I think, went down 20 or 30 feet.
Additional 20 or 30 feet, yeah.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you say replaced, so Dairy Ridge paid for brand new pumps and took the whole, or new pumps, new wells and everything for those people?
Correct. And a little clarification here, Dairy Ridge paid for all of this, as I stated earlier, and, you know, I called the well driller, asked him how do they want it, how people typically pursue these things, and he goes, it's likely it's not a good well to begin with, so offer 50%. And I did that to the first person. The first person said, I don't think that's fair, and I thought about it, and I said, I don't think that's fair either. So I'll pay for the whole thing. Do you want me to send my well driller out or yours? So one of them used mine, and the others used their own, and the bills were sent to me and they were reimbursed. Now, it's been brought to my attention that I sat here and lied before you people. I paid for that. 6 or 8 months later, it was brought to my attention there's a government program, because this is a ubiquitous problem during the drought. And there was a government program to reimburse people that had to do the wells. I applied. I was encouraged to apply by somebody from the county because they knew that I had paid for these. So that was reimbursed. There's the story. I didn't sit here and lie before you folks.
I was just asking if you paid for them and how that worked out. Thank you. Much appreciated.
So Adam, do we have the depths of the average wells in that area? What's the average depth?
Yeah, the average depth is right around 100 to 120 feet.
Okay.
Okay, and so with the B1 aquifer, that depth, it's pretty close to the bottom. That would be, you know, they're drilling through the aquifer and getting to the base of the aquifer, those 120-foot deep wells. And then the water level rises probably 80 feet above that depth, so. And getting back to what Commissioner Noska said, yeah, the DNR is looking, based off of the observation well that Dairy Ridge put in, is making sure they're looking at that 50% and 25% threshold. And the 50% threshold has not been exceeded at all. So it's close. They're probably at a 60% right now. And so that's the reason to take that stress off of the B1 aquifer. And I talked to David about that. I said, just long-term sustainability for the dairy itself. You really, the key is to get the stress off of that B1 aquifer, because that feeds the cows, or water, I should say it waters the cows. But, and so Commissioner Newman, to address a map to where the pivot one. So this map, did you all get a copy of this?
Yeah, we did. Thank you.
Yeah, this map shows that when I speak of pivot 1 and pivot 3, yeah, the pivot 1 actually isn't identified, but it's right by that 287. You see, I think that's County Road 287. And then you see well 1, 2, and 3 up there. That's the pivot 1 field. And those 3 wells were feeding the pivot 1, and that's the ones where we're reducing the actual appropriation down to 8 million gallons. So those 3 wells would only pump 8 million gallons. And then
Excuse me, Dan, and then that's currently approved for 84 million?
It's currently approved for 84 million, right.
And we're taking it to 8.
Correct, yeah, reducing it down to 8. And then, so you can kind of see the B1, you can see that pink line and that yellow line. The yellow line's the division between the B1 and H1 aquifer. It's like, it's equivalent, what we call paleo channel. So this was formed several thousand years ago, probably the last glaciation. And it's common in Minnesota to see aquifers that are former paleo channels. So they're just buried under 100 feet of whatever of sediment. But the B1H1 line, so where you see the pivot 3, if you go in even pivot 2, as you work your way to the southwest, you'll see pivot 2 is within that H1 aquifer, and then pivot 3 is down at the bottom of the page there. And you see well 1 and well 2 to pivot 3. And it's that well 1 that we're going to file a new permit for, to increase the appropriation to the 84 million or whatever, yeah. And then what that well will do is it'll bring water over to the pivot 1 area through piping. And so you can see how it's in a different aquifer than the B1 aquifer.
Say, Dan, do you have the usage of pivot 1 last year? How many million gallons did it use last year?
Yeah, good question.
I was told 37 million.
Okay, so and it's gonna be permitted for 8? For 8 now, it will be permitted for?
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, you won't have any other option but to draw from somewhere else, I suppose.
Right, yeah, that's the reason for that, just to pull from that more prolific slash robust H1 aquifer. And again, we have the DNR has been monitoring that with the DNR observation well, which is also shown on this map. And it's, there's actually 2 of them, just to the northwest of pivot 2 there, near Highway 71. You see 244556 and 139195, and those are DNR observation wells. And one is a shallow one and one is a deep one. And the deeper one, let's see, is the 244556. And that's the system that we'll be pulling from. That's the H1 aquifer. And the water levels have stayed, as a hydrogeologist, amazingly steady. There's a dip in 88, 90, 89, 90. I believe that was a pretty good drought year, period of drought. So, but then it came back up and has been steady since, till probably this new dry period, although it hasn't dipped, it has not dipped as much as it did in 88, 89. nonetheless, really robust.
Right, there is a monitoring well on B1 aquifer as well, correct?
There is now, because
There is now,
Barry-
so it's not on this map, you don't have it?
It is not on this map, that's a good point, it should be.
Okay.
So where it's located is, if you see well one there,
Mhm.
up by the pivot one area, the 287 County Road, it's just south of that and east of well two, it's right in that location.
Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that we are monitoring, and this piece of paper also shows the difference in how the change in water level has occurred in the B1 aquifer. A drop of about 22 feet in the last 20 years. So it's about a foot per year that's been dropping in that B1 aquifer, and that, as a hydrogeologist, that gets your attention right away for long-term sustainability of.
Right, and that's what's scary, and
Yeah.
that's why we're having this conversation. We've had a lot of contacts from landowners,
Yeah.
and, you know, we're
people
just
out there.
trying to do our best to protect them, so.
Yeah, no, I've run out of water before.
Right.
In fact, during that drought, I think in 88, 89, I have a well point, and that's what David mentioned. Two of these were well points, really shallow. You know, the water level drops. You can only pull up from about 28 feet below land surface because it starts breaking suction. So it's nerve wracking. I ran out at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I had to bring
So,
the
Dan-
dishes to the neighbors.
So, excuse me, but, you know, we used 37 million gallons last year from Pivot One, and that's significantly, that was a drought year. That was based on all of our current mitigation, irrigating at night, irrigating less, because we realized we had a troubled aquifer. We did all of that voluntarily. There's no one coming to us and say, you had to do this. We felt terrible when these 4 wells had trouble. And that was a wake-up call for us. I thought we were I wish I'd have known Dan existed at that time. During this whole process, I had to seek out counsel in many different areas. And his name came up, and we reached out, and we hit a home run here because he just put a plan together with Mr. Anderson.
Dan, with the dry winter we've had, and it looks like it's going to be a dry spring, how is that going to affect these wells and the aquifers?
Yeah, so chances are the water levels will drop in these, we'll see a drop in these aquifers without any precipitation and the substantial precipitation in the springtime. The drop, generally, you know, we do a lot of monitoring up by the Staples area and stuff, and we've seen a decrease for the first time in the water levels there over 15 years. And the decrease that we see is about 6 inches, you know, over this, when the drought started in 2021. And in some wells, we've seen up to 2 feet over that 3 years. So about 6 inches to 2 feet. So chances are those water levels will drop that, we'll just say 6 inches in the B1 aquifer and even the H1 aquifer. But that really, in terms of your available pumping, your available water column, it's not what I would call an adverse decrease. But the more concern is then we're gonna have to irrigate more.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to apply more water onto the fields. And so that's the looking forward and talking with David and saying, you know, we have to take the stress off of that B1 aquifer because the water levels are gonna continue to, the more
go
you pull,
down.
right? The more you pull from storage. So it's stored there, and if you pull from storage, you know, and the storage isn't being replenished, in which we need in the late fall and the early spring, right? Then what starts happening is the water levels start dropping because the storage is decreasing. And so looking forward, I don't know if this is something that is going to be more commonplace in the next 10 to 20 years, but nonetheless.
Because it speeds up the
What's that?
drop, it speeds up the dropping of the well, you know, tremendous.
Yeah, the more you pump from the aquifer, the lower that water level is going to go during the growing season. So then what you hope for is that replenishment to bring that storage back up to replenish that aquifer. But at this point, just looking forward, that's why we have to pull from a different aquifer. That's really, it's impressive. That's an impressive aquifer, that H1 aquifer. It's kind of, it's amazing actually that we haven't seen more of a decline in that over the years, but.
I would just like to reiterate, you know, we used 37 million gallons of water from that aquifer last year. The mitigation the plan we're putting together saved 64 million gallons. We are literally going to save twice as much as we use. So
Dan, that H1 aquifer, how big is that or compared to the B1 aquifer? What's the
Yeah.
comparison?
That's a good question. So if you look at the drawing or the map again, the B1 aquifer is quite linear. I mean, the pink line, if you will, is an inferred boundary. So it means we don't exactly know where that is, but it's a really good, I'll say, educated guess based on all the data that's out there, the data being the well logs and the water levels and things like that. To that, where you see the H1B1 and you see that's the aquifer boundary, we feel really good about where that's located, again, because we have a lot more data to support that. But then if you go to the west of that, it's anybody's guess. You know, it would take quite a bit of effort to delineate how far west that H1 aquifer actually goes. How far beyond, let's say, west of 71 would that aquifer go? It can be done. It just take a big effort.
And how long have these test wells been in the H1 aquifer?
They have been in since 1980, so.
Questions?
I guess all I have left is, Adam, could you give us the conditions that we are looking at coming up here?
So this is a combination of what the planning commission had put together and some of the concerns brought up during these work sessions and stuff. So some of them we combined together so we didn't have multiple of the same condition. Right now we're sitting at 16, so I'll just start walking through them. First, the applicant must obtain the NPDS permitting for the proposed expansion prior to issuance of land use permits. We've talked about that one a number of times, requiring that NPDS permit before Dairy Ridge can come and get the permits from the county. That's the thing that gives us the control on that and to make sure that gets accomplished. Two, no further building permits for feedlot components will be issued without prior approval of the MPCA, as long as the animal units and numbers animal units and numbers met or increased beyond the state NPDS, SDS, and federal CAFO definitions. So that's just requiring anytime they're making a change, they have to get that thumbs up from MPCA. 3, applicant must obtain alternate Minnesota DNR waters withdrawal permitting and provide verification of approval of permitting to Todd County prior to issuance of land use permits. So that's all the things we've been talking about here this morning, and that, again, we're not going to move forward with our land use permitting process until they can provide that verification. 4, the applicant must obtain construction stormwater permitting in accordance with Minnesota Rule 7090. 5, stormwater and erosion control plan within any engineered design shall be provided to Todd County prior to the start of construction. Todd County employees shall have the right to enter the property with advance notice throughout the 24 through 29 NPDS construction permit period to ensure stormwater protections are in place. 6, air quality exemption notices shall be provided to Todd County prior to all future manure application events. The notification shall include the field identification and location, manure density, manure application rate, period of application, procedure of application, and timing of incorporation. 7, land application fields and setback maps shall be provided to Todd County on an annual basis for no less than the first 5 years of the MPCA issued permit. 8, applicant shall provide annual land application records to the MPCA and the local feedlot program for review no later than March 15th of the year following the land application events to be reviewed. 9, all land applications shall adhere to Minnesota 7020 setbacks, including a 100-foot setback to sandpoint and other sensitive wells as defined by the Minnesota Department of Health, whether in use or not, and 50 feet from any non-sensitive well, whether private irrigation, commercial, or livestock well. These setbacks increase during winter application to 300 feet to all wells and surface waters and must be adhered to during winter land application events. 10, liquid manure storage structures shall have the capacity for no less than 12 months storage based on the annual manure production of the total animal units after expansion, with inclusion of all wastewater and runoff water for open lots being directed to the liquid manure storage area. All manure storage shall be constructed prior to stocking of additional animal units. 11, proposed liquid manure storage area shall be constructed entirely outside of the current drinking water supply management area of the city of Long Prairie. 12, applicants shall adopt an emergency management plan in both English and Spanish and shall have the plan posted in farm vehicles and key locations throughout the dairy site. 13, applicants shall seek application or recommendations from the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program before year 2024. I think that's supposed to say year end 2024. We'll fix that. 14, in the event of the manure spill or other discharge, applicant shall notify the county and the Minnesota duty officer immediately upon discovery of said discharge. 15, the applicant shall cease the use of 220th Street and US Highway 71 to 243rd Avenue, Long Prairie Township, for the use of heavy truck and tractor transport for the purpose of public safety and road integrity. That's that road, that short stretch on the south side of Lake Charlotte. And then lastly, that the applicant must abide by all their applicable federal, state, and local standards. So that's what we had just drafted based on the conversation. Thinking back to what the planning commission recommendation, that had 6 conditions at that time, so those are incorporated in here also. And I can provide copies of these in the board packet and stuff so you can review it.
Thank you.
And copies to you guys.
Regarding the use of that road, I'd just like you to consider what the alternatives are. We don't use it very much, but it means that equipment goes through city, or you're taking a turn on Highway 71 with very large equipment, a left turn.
Adam, is that township or county road?
It is Long Prairie Township's jurisdiction.
So that should go through Long Prairie Township.
Yep, and I talked with them. They have not expressed any direct concerns to us as a result of that, but we've had a number of people that live along that stretch of road that have come in and talked about it.
Requesting it.
Yeah, and that's the source of why the drip condition was drafted, but of course, that can be removed or amended as needed.
Any other questions? Questions?
Then I will have this on the agenda for that March 5th meeting, and try to provide any information or updates in the meantime to the board for informational purposes, and then we'll need to make a decision at that March 5th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So if I guess I'm asking in advance, or if you know in advance, if you want Dan to be present again to answer any more questions, or if we've exhausted his Q&A. I'm trying to be sensitive of his time going forward.
I know the water will be an issue that day.
I beg your pardon?
I said I know the well water, the aquifers will definitely be an issue, bringing it forth, so it's up to you,
It may be nice to have Dan there to answer public's questions
you know.
for us, because we aren't the experts on the water.
Okay. Are you available?
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, David, is that your mug too?
Sure is.
Good catch.
I think I need a bourbon in here tonight.
Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So before adopting this, wanted to give the board a chance to look through it, ask questions, and maybe you won't have questions today, but this is the drafted new sewage treatment standards ordinance. This was passed or recommended for adoption at the previous planning commission meeting. So what you see up there is exactly what was recommended with two minor typo edits that I have since fixed. So I'll point those out as we go here. I highlighted a bunch of stuff. I'm just gonna burn through it because for the most part, the updates were related to us updating to the new septic rule. And secondly, there was a lot of language such as referring to the need to obtain building permits. Well, we don't issue building permits in Todd County, it's a land use permit. So we made a lot of those fixes. In this process, we are required to review this with MPCA. There's a questionnaire and a checklist and different requirements that need to be in there. I have met with Aaron from MPCA at least twice and went through those checklists, so that's all completed. So we are ready for adoption if the board is ready to adopt it. So some of the major changes, there was just a lot of language update, but we, in part B that you see up there, that last sentence, that a design submitted to the county shall be valid for a period of 12 months. We added that being that we have designs sitting in that drawer for years and they never get installed. So just like our permits, we put a time limit on it. That thing is good for a year, and if you want to use it again, you just need to have your designer come and review it, make sure it still meets the rule. Otherwise, we end up with these designs that are 5 years old and may not meet the requirements of the rule any longer. Part 2 under B, permit shall not be required to repair, rejuvenate, or remediate, and then some language after that. Previously, we did not spell out where you needed to get a permit and the type of activities where you did not need one. So we made that very clear in there. Moving down to part 5, the last part of that talks about the need to prove that your septic is adequately sized if you're doing addition to your house. And if you're not able to prove that, that last part is just saying what our expectation is that you will get a design to expand the system or replace it so that the number of bedrooms matches the septic design. Now we'll scroll ahead a little ways to part, I'm not good with my Roman numerals, it's second to last on this page. XV, there we go. So in that part, on lots created after that January 23rd, 1996, we amended that to say they must have a minimum of 2 soil treatment and dispersal areas that support systems described in the Minnesota rule. So we just adopted that section directly from the rule rather than having our own language. Moving along, kind of middle part of the next page. Right there is good. Those last 2 parts. The second to last one talks about when soil observations, how they need to be conducted in compliance with the rule, and then also determination of your loading rates and your absorption area sizing. We just adopted that by reference to the rule. And then in the septic rule, it allows that if local ordinance allows, you can put your tanks deeper than 4 feet the top of the tank. So we added that language in there that you can go no deeper than what the manufacturer's tank depth standard is. If we just set a flat, can't go deeper than 4 feet, we'd have a lot of people in trouble, or you'd be forcing them to put pumps in their basement, which then expands your tank capacity sizing. So because a lot of these older homes have plumbing out of underneath the basement floor or whatever, this gives them the flexibility. Going to the next page. Part D there. This is all the requirements that were previously in that administrative variance section for exceptions to having a holding tank. We took them out of that administrative variance section and just placed it into situations where holding tanks are allowed. Because what's happening is that people are in these certain situations. The ordinance says you can do it if you apply for the variance, well, they're automatically granted. So in order to simplify that process for both us and landowners, we just stuck them in as language that says you can do them in these scenarios rather than going through that admin variance process. So when we get down a little bit further, you'll see that those have been removed. At the bottom of this page, this is one of my typos. When I did the, if you look at part F, it says general requirements of type 3 systems, and then the first part of G should be the second part to F. When I did the accept the tracking changes, it didn't format correctly. I have that fixed already. That was one of them. Bottom of the next page, just right above K when you get there. There we go. That last part, that was another part that didn't follow the numbering, so I have that fixed too. That's part 13 now. I don't know what V is. 5? Doesn't matter. That is fixed now also. And then right immediately under that, we added a statement that certificate of compliance of a newly installed system is good for 5 years, which is what we've always been educated on, but it's not very well stated anywhere that that is the rule, so we put it in our ordinance, so it's very clear. And the next part 2 there of the next page, we didn't have a statement before that we required in-field inspections prior to issuing a permit. We have that statement in there now, so we can verify the soils. It avoids a lot of heartache when there's a different, discrepancy in the soils. And one of the major sections, if you scroll down just a little bit further, Jolene, we updated this transfer of property requirement. What's happening with our old process was that people could come in and change ownership of a property, and then we got to go back and enforce it. Well, that John was advising us that's very difficult for them to go back on something that should have been done under new ownership. And people were really just skirting that requirement to get a land or to get an inspection. So we updated this to, first off, allow some more flexibility in how that inspection gets accomplished, and secondly, it spells out who is responsible in any given situation so that when it comes to enforcement, we know precisely who to go to. And that's where that last part is. Part 5 is in the absence of a written agreement, according to this section, the buyer shall be responsible. It's laid out in ordinance. But it does allow them to come to an agreement on how they want to go about updating or getting the inspection done of an existing system, providing that documentation to the county, and then allowing a period of time to get the work done. Where previously it was get it done at the time of transfer, and then we just had a mess and couldn't track. We had tons of property transfers every year that we couldn't enforce that section of the ordinance. So we updated that to make it a little bit, again, more flexibility, but also more enforceable on our end. And we added those exemptions, part 2 of where there's some unique scenarios where we would not require a compliance inspection. And then lastly, the admin variance section is exactly the same except for part 2. We just removed those holding tank requirements because we had brought that up into that situation of where a holding tank is allowed up above further. And the last section is the setback requirements, and there was absolutely no changes to setbacks. That was a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, but I am happy to answer any questions.
So my question is, what's new and what's been deleted?
It might be better if I give you the track changes document so you can actually see what was crossed out and retyped.
The red line.
Why don't I sometimes it gets confusing to look at, but I will send that to you immediately when I get downstairs, and then you'll be able to see precisely where things were changed. And I have 3 different versions as we amended things, so I can just send you everything, and you probably have questions, and that's absolutely great. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Contractors call me on this and wanted to know, if we change what we're changing supposedly, we could double the price of installing a septic system. And that's like, why would we want to do that? Because I'm not in favor of that.
I can say that there is potential that depending on the scenario, system costs are more nowadays no matter what. That's just the times we live in now. But outside of that, the increased cost is going to potentially come from your tank capacity. Because under the old septic rule, a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom, you get away with a 1,000-gallon tank. Well, now that cutoff is from 3 to 4. So at 4 bedrooms, you have to go to a 1,500-gallon tank. That's the major cost, is that increase in capacity of your tank. Now, like when you think back to when I originally brought this to consider amending it, nobody gets trained on those standards anymore. All the contractors, new contractors coming in, all the existing ones that go to continuing ed, myself, my staff, nobody gets trained on that old septic book anymore. And so it really comes to a point where we have to update this at some point in time. There are not a lot of major differences between that old, we call it the yellow book, and now it's blue or something like that, except for that tank capacity. And the way you do your calculations on mound sizing is a little different, but it does not result in a different size mound. It's a strange way to calculate it, but other than that, so we really just adopted everything by reference for the most part, with some local control that gives us more clarity on how to operate.
So does the state still have meetings on this stuff where, because I remember when I was, had been my second term, we went to Duluth and they had a class up there strictly on septic.
Yeah, so every year MPCA puts on what they call their talking tour for local staff. And they're at different spots around the state. So you can go spend a half a day, ask questions. They have some different updates and stuff. So they provide that. But then we are required to do our continuing ed, which is like 12 direct credits and then 3 soils. So you have to do that on I think it's every 3 years. You have 18 credits you have to obtain to maintain your license. So we're going to different continuing ed classes quite often.
Adam, you might not know the answers to these questions I got, but what's the life of the modern day septic now?
Okay, that's going to depend completely on the use of the system. If you have a 4-bedroom home, but
Excuse me, are you talking mound?
Mound or tanks?
Sure.
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I'm getting to a point.
Yep. Yeah. So in theory, your drain field, whether that's a mound or trenches or whatever, should operate similar, have the same lifespan, but it's going to be completely dependent on who is owning that system.
Right.
Some people recognize that they have a smaller house, lots of people living in there, and they pump that tank every year. Others have 2 people living in a 6-bedroom house, and that system could last 50 years or more. It's all dependent on how the system is maintained and the people using it, and making sure you're not putting things down the system that shouldn't be there, and doing maintenance on it as you need to.
Right. So we can all agree that a system put in 100 years ago or 50 years ago is very subpar to what we have now, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So what I'm getting to is that we have century farms and we have people that are living on their grandparents' farm or great-grandparents' farm and transferring stuff, and maybe the septic's been, maybe it's been holding up, but maybe that septic is failing that we can't see. Like, oh, we just have to pump it a little bit more. Maybe it's failing underground. Being we're an old county, and a lot of the complaints that we get from high nitrates are from older people we're seeing, or somebody that's on their grandparents' farm now. My wondering is that septic being a concentrated amount of nitrates in their drinking water, if that's not some of the cause of this, rather than some of the farms surrounding, are we on these old places? Again, I reiterate, we are an old county, and a lot of people like to be on grandma and grandpa's farm.
Sure.
And if we transfer the title, we didn't do the septic, maybe we've been using the same septic for a lot longer, and people think maybe that thing has failed underground. We just don't know. We just know it's that, oh, we used to pump it once a year. Now we're pumping it every year and a half, every 2 years now, or whatever, or we're pumping it twice a year. I don't know. It's just,
right.
I'm getting to like, are some of this stuff, I mean, I'm sure, especially in the country, or, I'm sure that they are failing underground. We're just not picking up on it. And
Yeah, that's commonly what we see on those older systems is there may have been a tank, but they're a straight pipe, which that's an eminent public health threat. We try to address those as quickly as we can, but those old tanks crack. And when they installed those 50, 75 years ago, who knows when, there wasn't the setback requirements that there are today either. You absolutely could have impacts from your own septic to your own personal well. Many of those that did have drain fields, they didn't really understand how to analyze the soils like we do now, and they were put in the water rather than the 3-foot separation that's required by rule today.
Yeah.
So there's a number of things, but there could be impacts on your personal property from that.
Perfect. Sorry, I'm just thinking through a few things, so I
Sure.
appreciate you answering.
It's a great question.
That's all I have.
Okay, any other questions?
Just so now, I mean, from what I'm getting of it, we're just adopting the new
They'll
regulation.
come to the,
It's just a new
Mark.
regulation. It's for public health and safety. That's why we have septic systems.
That was what our goal was, to try to keep it as simple as possible, adopt that new version of the rule. And anytime there is a rule update, we'll never have to go.
Would we have had the option to keep what we had?
You could have.
I'm just out of curiosity, because I mean, I know it was outdated, and it was outdated
Right.
10 years ago.
Yes.
So.
You're gonna bring that to the March 5th board meeting then?
Yes, and
Okay.
today I will send my track changes documents so you guys can kind of do the side-by-side comparison. That might be helpful. Please ask any questions, but yeah, I'll get this on the agenda for March 5th to make a decision on it.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Oh, sounds
Awesome.
good.
Thank you. And I did get that Rodriguez withdrawal now that it's.
You just got
an hour
it?
Too late.
Oh, okay.
We'll have that on March 5th.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nancy.
Thanks for waiting, Nancy.
You guys got a long day today. All right, so I have one agenda item. Jolene, can you go down to the map first, because I want to show, and then we'll go back up. So this is the map of lateral 2, that purple dot, that's the approximate start of the deep ditch that then outlets then to the west. So that's the section, you can go back up. So the as-built length of lateral 2 is approximately 2,000, I should start over. Okay, so this is the County Ditch 40 lateral 2 estimate from Big Stone Excavating LLC. And so the approximate as-built length of lateral 2 is 2,662 feet. And that deep section, which was that purple dot, to the main ditch is approximately 571 feet. And that's the section where those very large spoil piles were created in 1973 by the Ditch Authority when there was severe flooding. And so those were pushed up to bank the ditch and get the water to channel back into the ditch because it was overflowing in the fields. Because this was done before the WACA rules went into effect, these piles can now be considered original spoil piles only in that section of ditch on this ditch system. So the details of the bid from Mark Trainer, all trees and brush will be removed on both sides. The brush will be chipped. And then all trees and whatever brush is not chipped would be piled on the south side of the ditch and then piled and burned. And whatever doesn't burn would be hauled off site. And when I talked to Mark Trainer, he said a lot of the stuff is willow brush, which likely isn't gonna burn well, so all of that would be hauled off. And then where the large spoil piles are, so the south side of the deep section of ditch, since we can consider those original spoil piles now, he would level those spoil piles that are making the ditch so deep in that section. And then he would level those off, and then he would do the tree removal, pile them on that south side of the ditch, do the excavation of the new spoils, and set them on that south side, which are now gonna be considered original spoil piles, so he can pile them there rather than having to put the spoil on the north side of the ditch in that section. And then the spoil from the remainder of the ditch would be excavated and then leveled on the original piles, which are on the north side of that section. For the remainder. So his estimate came in at $17,000. And $1,000 of that was for leveling those large spoil piles that are there. So that was what that extra would be to level those there. And so that's $639 per foot, which is still about not quite double what we normally pay for cleaning, but we don't normally remove trees from the property, or burn them actually from the property. So, any questions?
Questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may, yeah. So on this one, I mean, that's substantially less than any of the other bids.
The other one was 23.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah,
it is
23,000.
getting better. I
Yeah,
would
it's
say.
getting better.
Getting
yeah.
better. And so you say that, when did we pay $3 a foot to, when was the last time we paid that for?
We just cleaned ditch 19.
That was just recently here,
Yes.
3.5, you said $350 a foot?
Yep.
But it wasn't as deep, there weren't spoil piles to level, there wasn't trees to chip.
No,
and
there were
remove?
trees.
There were trees that
Yeah.
one? Okay.
Yeah, the only difference in this is that spoil pile to be removed.
Okay.
What we've generally done in the past is that landowners, to keep costs down, have allowed us to take larger trees and set them outside the spoil pile. We've always chipped the brush and anything that was small enough to chip, we've chipped. And then the landowners have taken care of the other larger trees that were outside the spoil pile to keep the costs down.
Sure.
So the difference in this one is that the trees are all, well, and we actually only remove trees on one side of the ditch.
The other side of the ditch system, if the trees were leaning into the ditch or if they were gonna fall into the ditch, we'd of course remove those. But we didn't do complete tree removal on both sides of the ditch system. We only did it from one side, which was the side the spoil was gonna go on.
And now for future happenings, is there some way we can spray these trees or something like
We
that?
do.
Now we do?
Yeah.
So this doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
You know, 75 years from now, we've got 18-inch diameter trees again?
No, we usually, about every 3 years, we spray.
Okay, so this, I mean, just to prevent this from the next person having to deal with it?
Nancy, are the farmers not, or landowners not agreeable to take care of the bigger part of the tree?
No.
Oh, they are not.
He has done some chipping of the brush that was along there, but the larger trees that are along there, no. And there's larger trees in the ditch bottom also, so no.
So, go ahead.
As a ag inspector, are you confident this is a good plan? Do you like this plan? I mean, I know it's the lowest bid, but as far as how do you feel about it? You feel like this would be adequate, or are we just kind of getting by on the bare minimum?
No, what we're doing here is more than we have done on any other ditch systems.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't generally, like I said, we don't remove trees from both sides unless they're falling into the ditch from we just remove the side that has the spoil on it and level the spoil on that side.
Okay.
You know, we remove trees that are in the ditch slopes, the inslope, you know, the inslope, the down, and the top, those trees are all removed, but we don't generally remove anything from the spoil band, or from the 16.5 foot on the side we're not putting spoil on. We only do that on the side that we're doing the spoil.
So is just the way the contractor bid, or is this the way the landowners wanted it?
This is the way the landowner wants it done.
And it's at his cost?
No, he wants it
It's at the
assessed to the
ditch-
whole, he wants it assessed. to the
Assess the
ditch
whole
system.
ditch.
Yeah.
How many landowners are on this ditch? Is there two, just two landowners, one on each side of the ditch? Is that how this?
3.
There's 3
There's-
landowners that
he-
would directly benefit from this being cleaned?
Yeah, he owns the 80,
Yeah.
and then on the north side, there's 2 landowners, each owns a 40. If you want to go back down to that.
And this would be split, the cost of this would be split between all landowners on the assessment roll?
Yes.
How many landowners are there total again? I'm sure I have it somewhere, but just for
Yeah.
reference and.
How many letters did I mail? Hold on a second. So I mailed 48 letters,
So it's 48
but those are, some landowners have
Less than-
multiple parcels.
And more or less, they'll get assessed, I mean, just based on how much of their property benefits and.
Right, and what the original assessment roll
Right,
benefited
right,
acres was.
And maybe this is a John question too, can we just bid it as past practice? You know, because this is totally different than what we normally do
Right.
for all the landowners and so forth, so by past practices, we don't do it this way? Will that hold up water?
The ditch attorney just said we'd have to document why we'd be denying it. We'd have to document.
The problem is we
For
can't get
past
another.
practices?
Right.
Yeah, that's not a,
Yeah.
are you telling us we have to accept this?
No, I'm telling you that the attorney did say that if we document why we were not approving it, and one of those reasons could be that we're not getting what is the normal expected price that we generally pay for ditch maintenance.
Where do we want to go?
I don't know where I want to go with this. I mean, we have to do something because it's been petitioned, correct? I mean,
It's what?
the landowners petitioned to have this ditch cleaned, correct? Is that how this worked? Or
He
we-
did a repair request, so I did it as a inspection, so that you guys can order it yourselves. If he wanted to petition for it, you could use the benefits are larger, or the cost would be higher than the benefit amount. But the benefits on this ditch were about 17,000, so it's right in that area of what the benefits were. And if you wanted to deny it at that time, then they could ask for a redetermination of benefits, which would then increase the amount of money you could
Everything that we
spend.
Everything goes up. if we
Yeah.
don't- I
Yeah,
mean,
but that's what you could use then to increase the dollar amount you spent if you had the benefits increased by a redetermination of benefits.
the redetermination of benefits is a lot more than $17,000.
Yes, and you would need 26% of the landowners to ask for it.
So I don't know where, because it's gonna come back to us if we don't do it.
Oh, absolutely.
This is gonna come back
This
if we deny it.
this one landowner is requesting it to be done to this, but that's abnormal than what we normally do.
Generally, we have more people asking, yes.
Yeah.
One landowner.
Where do you guys want to go with this?
So I'll be bringing it back, so I am actually not available for the March 5th
Okay.
meeting. So I will be bringing it back to the March, I believe it's the 19th meeting. And I do need to talk with the attorney to see if I need to send letters out to the entire assessment roll, if you guys are actually gonna make a decision on the 19th. I need to ask that question if we are required, if we need to send a letter out. Because generally in the past, we've done an informational meeting and then had a repair hearing. And so that night, then the attorney and stuff was there. So we could either do another repair hearing, which will then be more attorney fees and stuff, or we could just make the decision at a board meeting. But I need to find out if to make that decision at the board meeting, if I have to send letters to the landowners.
Okay.
And also, could you see what our attorney thinks about us denying this, or if it's gonna come back to bite us if we do or don't? You know, is this gonna end up costing us a lot more in the long run if we do deny it?
Yeah.
As long as we're all here, what happened in the 70s?
There was a really severe flood that actually blew out, because this is actually, ditch 40 is actually the
Swan River?
Swan River, the little Swan
Little
River.
Swan, yeah.
And so there was a really severe flood in the early 72, I believe, and it literally blew out all of the ditch banks, and the water was sitting in the fields.
Yep.
And so to get the water back into the ditch, they wanted to rebank areas that had blown out. And so they took the dirt on the land and basically pushed it up and banked it to get the water to rechannelize back in and then go into the ditch. And there's like 2, for sure, maybe 3 areas that laterals went into the main ditch, that's the area that got blown out, that they did this. They pushed soil, actually, not even just spoil, but actually took soil from the field and banked it up.
Is that what we would do today?
We've never had a flood like that, so I don't, nowadays you have FEMA funding, you've got everything else that can help, pay to fix that kind of stuff. This was like an unusual, severe thing that happened. It wasn't just your normal, it washed out tar roads.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I believe 27 was washed.
21 all the way up was,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was like a historical flood.
Mhm.
So, but to rechannelize it back into the ditch, these spoil piles were pushed up to do that.
And the landowners are asking for them to be moved back out again?
This
Or can we
landowner,
not?
this landowner.
Just one landowner? Can we approve it without doing the spoils?
So I had thought about, that was what my original plan was, is since the original spoils are actually on the north side of the ditch, to do it and not touch the spoil on the south side, but they would need a long reach excavator then to get down to the bottom of this ditch because it's very deep. So that would add cost. So the $1,000 that was extra for the leveling the spoil, one of the other bids that we had, I believe it was either $9,000 or $3,500 to rent a long reach excavator to reach into the bottom. So if
I think
we,
the leveling of the pile is to make it accessible for.
to make it
for a
accessible.
normal excavator.
Yeah. So it was kind of since we could consider it original spoil, since it was done before WACA rules came in, it makes it slightly cheaper to level those spoils first and then do the,
So you really can't take the 1,000 off the top, because if you do that, that jacks the cost up, because you have to rent a.
yeah,
long
right.
reach
If we didn't level it,
You trade 3,500 for 1,000.
yeah, and I don't know if Trainers has a long reach excavator, but I know the other contractor did not and would have to rent it.
Right.
I guess I have a question with the other landowners. We only got one landowner requesting it to be done this way. I would be more on board if we had majority of them requesting to be done this way. It just seems odd that we would say, yes, this one person, and then impose that on everybody else.
Yeah, that's.
It just seems like if they all want it clean, that's great, but,
Then it never gets done is the problem.
right, sure, yeah, I get that. I'm just,
He's
But
causing
we're-
a lot of trouble.
right, but we're doing it his way, opposed to like what Commissioner Becker said, past practice, what we typically have done. But you know, you're telling me too, or telling us again that if we just work from the one side, you'd have to have a different equipment, long hole, and, but it's just,
I guess one thing we gotta look at too is this is a unique circumstance. It's a unique ditch system. It's different
Right.
than all the other ditches that we clean as
yeah,
well.
I get
So,
that.
I don't know.
That's why I'm kinda
I
asking.
don't wanna spend the money either, but.
Plus, I'm kinda asking Nancy here, what, I wanna know
And you
your,
know,
your
yeah.
opinion is on
Right,
it.
and he does have the option of cleaning it himself.
Sure, and,
I mean, that's always an option.
but if he cleaned just his section himself, that wouldn't do.
Well, that's, all that's getting cleaned is his,
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
okay.
he would have, the only problem with that is that he would have to coordinate with the neighbors on the north. Because the spoil pile is on the north, it has to go back on those original spoil piles. So he would have to coordinate with them to make, you know,
Yeah, it's like Nazca said, it's a very unique, situation here, and
I don't know what to say.
I wish there was more support for it, like,
Yeah.
Or more-
Most of the
more
other
involvement,
landowners
I guess.
aren't in support of it, are they, on
But-
this system?
No, but, yeah.
Maybe just the three that are on it.
or
one of the three that are
One
on-
of the, yeah, one of,
The other two probably don't care. Well, what parcels are they? The two to the north, right?
Yep.
Are different landowners?
yeah, so the one closest to the ditch system, he's not in favor, and the one on the north is actually Mr. Byers, Commissioner Byers' property.
are there,
Northeast one is?
is there land being impacted by this as of right now in a negative way?
I'm gonna say Commissioner Byers doesn't care because that looks just like small punting land, but it doesn't look like any ag production.
That's when he's so concerned about, you know, because, yeah.
Yeah, and the other landowners, the older gentleman, same thing, it's hunting land. and-
Sure.
It's not, and there's not a whole lot of ag land on the south side, is there? How many
He
acres
just-
does it look
I
like?
just talked to him this morning, and he said they're gonna be tearing that field up here come spring,
Well,
and,
it's dry, so yeah, it probably will.
but those are 543 soils. I mean, I sent you that
Mm-hmm.
map.
Yep,
It's mostly 543, 541 soils. There's a little bit
right.
this side that's, none of it's none of it's land of ag, what do they call that? Land of, you know what I'm trying to say? The soil type that's basically prime
Prime
ag
land.
land.
Prime farmland, yeah.
There is one little section where the yellow dot is, that's actually a culvert, probably to the end where you can see the trees are there. There's a small little piece of land right there that's considered prime ag land.
Okay, by USDA, I suppose.
Yeah, by the soil survey, it's
Yeah,
considered
yeah,
prime ag.
right.
But as of right now, in past, it hasn't had a negative impact the way it is. with anybody.
There's no water in it right now. I don't know that how often there is water in it.
Right,
I'm not really sure.
yeah.
But he could always come and do it himself if he wanted it done. Okay, just for clarification.
Will we end up denying on rights that it's not worth the expenditure isn't worth the benefit? Is that what we can
Or
deny
their
on?
lack of support, I don't know, it just.
I mean, well, I don't know.
I know you can't
Where
do
can we
that,
go
but
with
it's
it?
just,
Could you consult with our attorney,
Yeah,
please, on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Give us a little
Yep.
advice there, so we have somewhere to stand on if we do deny it.
Yeah, and then we're kind of looking at this coming the 19th.
The 19th, yep. Yeah, I was
Okay.
already not going to be in the office on the 5th. And the contractor, actually, if we did approve it, he said he's off in Florida, I think, for the next 3 weeks, so he won't be here anyway.
just for clarification, we're just trying to talk all points and angles of what,
Yes,
yeah,
yep.
so
Yeah.
what is right for everybody's best interest.
Yep. And you what? Yes. Yeah, Kale Van Bruggen. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Thank you, John.
Okay,
All right?
okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep you here so long. Mike's been waiting for all day for
All
this.
day.
Waiting all day for this.
Waiting.
I got some work done while I was waiting, so it's good.
I want to be added to the agenda too, so.
Oh,
Okay. All right. What is the first?
Staffing.
Position.
Staff, okay. So we budgeted and we had discussed in personnel the creation of 2 new positions. One of them is an extra investigator. Right now, our staff includes 2 investigators. And as some of society has changed and some of the requirements have changed, we find that we need 1 more. Right now, we have a grant that we can utilize that is for fraud prevention. So every hour we spend on that, we get reimbursed, and we haven't been able to put much time on that because we have so many other issues for our investigator to take care of. So we're asking for that position to be granted. It's been budgeted. We waited until now because we've got a little bit of time, but we're in need of that position. The other position, I don't know if we want to discuss that position first or both positions at the same time.
we must go into the other one too.
Yeah.
Okay, the other one is a second court security position. We use that term because I don't know what else to call it. As you may know, that we have 1 court security person that's in charge of the courthouse security. That includes probation, county attorney, everybody upstairs in the courthouse. When that person is gone on vacation, we were filling that position, and we continue to do that the best we can, but with lack of road staff, for one reason or other, sometimes that sits empty, and that's a safety concern for our office because we are taxed at providing security for that spot. So that new position would do a number of things. First, it would allow us not to have somebody in our staff be a bailiff, to work on trials, to relieve the current court security person for lunch breaks and when he's on vacation. Also, we want to implement with that position a fraud prevention program so we can go to senior centers and things and explain how not to get defrauded. And we've got other tasks in our office, boat and water, evidence tech, the things that road staff is doing that is currently keeping them off the road. So I would like to keep it road staff, primarily road staff. There's some jobs that are going to be additional for them, but these 2 positions would do a lot more than just the court security positions. And both are budgeted from our 2024 budget.
Your investigator, I'll start out. Is that a grant-based or not? Is there a grant out there that would help with that or not?
That fraud prevention one is, Madam Chair, it is, but we haven't utilized it as much as we want to because we haven't had time. So the new position wouldn't necessarily be grant aided, but we have the grant aid that we could use whenever we can get that time in on that fraud prevention. That fraud prevention is for welfare fraud in our county. So anybody who has, let's say, is receiving medical benefits that are ineligible, right now we're not investigating that as much as we should because we don't have the time and staff. And that's the part that's funded. Travis is too busy. It is, since I started here a number of years ago, the sex crimes have exploded, primarily because of the use of cell phones. Anybody who's got a cell phone can find anything they want. If that phone is utilized in a potential sex crime, we have to actually sit down and visualize and see every image on these phones. So one of those investigators sits and sees every screen, and sometimes there are thousands of screens on these kids' phones. And I shouldn't say kids', but a lot of times it is. And so the amount of time we spend on on these crimes are incredible. And we've got cases that are months old that we haven't had time to investigate because we don't have the funding and resources. Hopefully, this will resolve the vast majority of that.
And the security position, I think, has been up for discussion for about 2 years.
Yes, yeah, I kind of inherited that one.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to resolve it. And it's an important position. We can't, you know, as you watch society, we see oftentimes people coming into facilities
Yeah.
to cause harm. And right now, we have a routine. We know that our court security position will go to lunch. And sometimes it's not manned, and we simply can't have that.
Yeah. Any other questions? Just have them bring them to,
They'll probably come to, Madam Chair, they'll probably come to the 5th.
On the 5th?
March 5th board.
okay,
Knowing that it's gonna take some time to fill those positions through interviews and such.
okay,
Okay?
okay, real good. We'll
Perfect.
see you on the 5th.
The last two items, we've talked of before, I believe we've talked to the body cameras in work session. Just more of a information and an update. Right now, with the cost of 22 new body cameras, the cost is roughly, and I'd have to call back again before we actually made the purchase, of $167,870. That'll include new servers, new body cameras. The ones we have now are at the end of their lifespan and are becoming obsolete. We've got deputies that don't have them because they're gone, they're not fixable. And we broke 2 in the last 2 months in scuffles. And so that's a pretty thick pill to swallow. But a lot of the deputies or the sheriffs are using their public safety aid for this purpose now. And I think that's kind of why they had that big increase for this and for body cameras and squad equipment. They knew that was going to be increased by 20 to 30% for this year. So that's what that price is through Motorola. I don't think it'll change significantly, but that's what that one is. And the other one is the radar detectors. I work with Stalker. That's who is our brand that we've been using. And right now, that cost for 5 of them is just a shade over $12,000. And they had a program where you buy 4, you get 1 free type thing. And so that has maybe expired, but I can be persuasive. So we just want to put some on the shelf with the new squads we have. The one in my squad is like 12 years old, and I know when we last certification, they said we should probably swap these things out every 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
So
Mike, how much money did you get in that public safety aid?
it was a little over, we have a little over 700,000 in there right now, Madam
Okay.
Chair. If I'm not mistaken, that was the
Okay.
amount. And I'm not sure if I have to do some research if we can carry that over or how that works. Certainly something we don't want to lose.
No,
But they're finding, it's pretty open to what we spend that on. They've got some regulations, you can't spend it on armored gear and armored carriers and that kind of thing, but anything law enforcement or public safety is pretty much fair game.
okay. Julie, you, budget-wise, we're staying within the budget for this then? We should be.
Yep, these are specialized funds that came in, and we've had conversation, Mike and I, about how we need to move forward to restrict or commit these funds so that they are not succumb back to fund balance from 2023's receipt,
Okay,
so that they can be pulled forward for these large purchases.
And with both these items, we're looking at a way to rotate them with officer equipment. So if we get 5 or 6 squads a year, replacing these items every 2 squad rotations seems like a logical way to do it. That way we're not spending such a large amount at one time. We're split those out as new squads come in.
okay. Questions? You bring this to the March meeting also then?
That's the plan.
March 5th?
Yes, that's the plan,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mike.
We can. John, you had something?
Real quick, I didn't realize that some step needed to be taken from the personnel committee to get onto the work session agenda. Because at the personnel committee, there were two things that I brought up in my office that it was agreed to bring it to work session. So if I could briefly discuss them, Randy, you'll remember. One was approving the hiring of a fourth legal assistant in my office, and two, equalizing the assistant county attorneys so they're all level 6 facility, tiers 1, 2, and 3 that are fiction because everybody does the same thing. Those are the two issues.
I'll kind of look at Nellie.
Yeah, they were on the January 31st personnel meeting.
Okay. And so they've got to go through here in order to be put on the board meeting?
Yep.
Okay. I'm okay with bringing them forward. When do you want to do it on the 5th then, or the 19th? Tell me, the 5th?
That's so that Jonathan.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, John.
All right, this next, it would be the job description. Yes?
That's got to go through
And
personnel.
that's what, through it, like next?
We got to adjourn this and
Perfect, I
then,
love that answer.
and then these, the two end ones can go and Randy and I stay.
Back to work.
Yeah, because they got to go through personnel and then there'll be, yeah.